supposed to forget about it. So, if you did, you're a good American. Just remember that Trump blows Bubba. Just remember that. Ask Bannon if Putin still has the pictures of Trump blowing Bubba. Do you guys remember that? Isn't that interesting how that just disappeared like Mark Levin's micropenis? Not use a snuffer. It's a weird thing to say. Ooh, this one smells pretty. Oh, Trump blows Bubba. How does that disappear? Outside of conspiracy, that the system's completely controlled and blah blah blah. Think about that. I don't know. I just posted that as a clickbait kind of thing because Trump is like a B tier topic. Trump is just another distraction. There's all so many distractions. And then you're dumb enough to fall for the idea that, like, Trump posts a picture of him looking like a messianic figure, and then he's like, "Oh, I thought it was a doctor. I thought it made me look like a doctor." Like, if that's the case, then your mental state is completely gone. Not a single person would see that picture and go, "Oh, look at that doctor." But he's allowed to get away with it because so many people just want. There's a great page called Truthful Liars or something like that. I don't remember. But it's these two guys, one of which at least is a friar, so that part sucks. But they walk around and they go to like Trump rallies and stuff, and they ask people questions in ways that make them look really stupid. Like the one guy is holding this big sign that says, God is pro-life. It's an abortion rally. And he's like, "What does your sign mean?" And the guy's like, "What it says, God is pro-life." And he was like, "Well, didn't God kill everyone on earth except for Noah and his family and their livestock?" And the guy was like, he just shut down. What's he going to say? He can't say shit. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know his Bible. Most of you morons don't know your Bible. You believe in something and you don't even know what the fuck it says. You know bits and pieces. But like this fake ass priest character, right? They don't know what the fuck it says. They're stupid. And the hardest thing to do in this battle is to see this stupidity and try to engage in the stupidity, like engage in conversations without stupidity. I mean, you can't engage with stupid people and expect them to be intelligent. And anybody that identifies as a priest can't be that smart, especially if they're lying. They're not even a priest. They're just somebody that pretends like it. Oh, did you get mad? Did you get mad? The battle is God's, and through Jesus we've already won. What? Why do religious people speak in such a weird language? I mean, again, it comes down to, what do you expect them to speak like normally, intelligently? No. We've already won. What have we already won? Oh, you must be white. You must be some dumb white guy in the United States who's like, "Oh, look at how great my situation is. Never mind all those children being raped by clergy. That doesn't affect me." because because we're speaking God's language. He doesn't capitalize the G on God. This is a priest, right? Doesn't capitalize the G on God. No apostrophe for God's language. But the funniest thing is, Aramaic, English, especially your broken ass stupid English, is not God's language. But I'm so glad you were dumb enough to prove this shit for us today. This dumbass doesn't even capitalize the G on God. And he's talking about he's some sort of believer. He's some sort of representative. Get the fuck out of here. And of course, the Bible is just a Jewish fairy tale. Every character, all the main characters in the Bible are all Jewish. All of the stories are Jewish. And they all, it's like you're saying, you will find me. You're going to find me for pointing out how stupid you are. You're calling me an idiot. You don't even capitalize the G on God. That's how smart. What are you doing? What?
Just so she doesn't get it anymore.
Huh?
Just so she doesn't get it anymore.
Yeah, that shit's going to keep coming out. Here, give me that.
Oh, no, it's not because I just pushed it in.
There you go. How dare you, says the fake priest. How dare I point out how stupid you are? It's pretty easy, actually. You make it really, really easy. Stupid ass is so upset right now because he got caught being stupid that he's look at his temper tantrum. Look at him abusing his family. How'd you like that abuse, Nick?
Oh, I love it.
No, you hate it. You're supposed to say you hate it. Remember, it's abuse, so you hate it.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Right
Exactly. Get it right, boy, or I'll abuse you some more. Another white person. Fishing. White person. Only dumb white people use nappy incorrectly. Because they don't know what nappy is, so they just say it to be sort of racist and whatnot, but they're fucking stupid. Priest is stupid. He absolutely is, but so is anyone who falls for, that friar fairy tale. That silly ass piece of shit Jesus. You have to be stupid. It's a requirement. You cannot be intelligent and believe in that shit. It just doesn't work. His son sounds neglected. He sounds neglected. How does that sound? What does sounds neglected sound like? To a guy who doesn't even capitalize the G when he's talking about God. Come on, smarty pants. You will one day. One day is not a word. One day is 2 words. You probably think no one is 1 word too, right? Noonie. Noonie. Oh shit. Hello from New York. Gee, you're surrounded by them. Sorry. You might be one of them, but you're surrounded by them. Yuck. Jesus knows the truth, and in him we shall. This guy is so stupid, he can't even fucking get his sentences out. Like, this is typical Christian. Hang on a second, let me share that. Oh, shit. Hang on a second. Give me one more second. Where are you from? Detroit. Alright, sorry about that. Greetings from Lithuania. What's up, Lithuania? Are you guys getting rid of the friars too? I know Lithuania is where a lot of you guys come from, actually. Well, a lot of them come from. I don't know if you're one of them, but... yeah, the murdered city, indeed. But this is the Lithuania thing. Lithuania, Romania. This is where it seems like the friar cult sort of originated in these places. Ukraine, they're separate, so it's hard to pin down which one's the first one, but These fucking weirdos, man. I mean, I'm never surprised by any of it. Actually, I guess I kind of am. Because in the last few days, we've had a few of these friars come through. And what? Yeah. A few of these friars come through and really admit to and acknowledge some really awful shit. A lot of pedophile stuff that these guys are acknowledging. The one guy said last night that everything they do, because I was talking about the Talmud and how they rape children, they rape their own children, and he was saying his response to it was everything that they do regarding the Talmud and the Torah and all that brings them closer to God. That was what his response was. He wasn't like, yeah, you're right, pedophilia is disgusting and needs to stop. He was justifying it and saying it brings them closer to God to rape children, which is essentially what the bottom of darkness points out. And for those that don't know, the bottom of darkness is an article written. Nick, you want some too? Written in April of 2025. Will put out in April of 2025 by Israel Hayom, Israel's #1 and largest free daily propaganda newspaper kind of thing. It's really a fascinating story. The link will be in the description after the fact. If you need it now, you can just go to a previous video and it'll be there. Holy shit, we got a lot of fucking spiders in the house today. Or in the last couple of days. I like to leave the spiders because they eat the little bugs. But I've seen like 6 of those. Well, not 6, but so the bottom of darkness. This is what they try to hide. Israel Hayom is as pro-Israel, as pro-Friar as it gets. They push Netanyahu. They just everything. There's no Goyim involved anywhere, top to bottom. No editors, no reporters, no photographers, nothing. And it's very much about friar supremacy. And so to understand that and understand that this article was put out by yesterday. Maybe, I don't know if it was yesterday at the interview, but Randy Fine was doing a podcast. And one of the quotes is, one of the things they were talking about is like, they say that we control everything. Well, why do we let them blah, blah, blah? Like, if we control it, why do we allow so much dissent? And why do we, whatever. And it's the same, you could say the same thing about this article here. Why would they have done this? But when you read the article from the perspective of a victim, you say, okay, let me see. If I'm a victim of this system and I read this article, what would I think? And I promise you, this article does not strengthen you. This article does not give you confidence that the bad guys will suffer. This article does is it basically is telling anyone else, all the other victims, like you might as well not say anything. You might as well keep your mouth shut because nothing will come from it. And that's what this article is. Of course it exposes things, but if they control the exposure, well, it doesn't matter. TXT, what's up, dude? What you doing? You.
Hanging out with the dogs.
Nope. Come on, man. Oh, Bubba is Netanyahu's surprise. Yeah, well, I think Bubba's Bill. Bibi is Netanyahu. I mean, like, we know their guy is called Bibi, and we know that Bubba was Clinton. When they asked Clinton about it, Somebody asked him about it. Clinton had this big smile and didn't say anything. That was how he responded to it. What?
You take my rubber bands?
Huh?
You take my rubber bands?
What is you talking? Just put them on the fucking plate, man.
No, this is no thing.
Right? No, Jesus. Jesus is dumb. Once a friar touches gold, it becomes friar gold. I'd love to visit that industrial area where all the manufacturing was done. I mean, what people don't understand is, again, Detroit was home to a large Jewish population. They owned and still own, for the most part, a lot of the city. But in the 60s and 70s, the suburbs started to flourish. And so they moved out to the suburbs while still owning all of the stuff in Detroit. And they're like the definition of slumlords, right? They refuse to fix anything. They refuse to maintain it, which is why Detroit looks the way it does. Because the owners, the friar owners, just wouldn't fix anything. Wouldn't be good landlords, wouldn't help out their tenants. And so, Detroit went to shit because of them. Detroit is the architecture and all that is just insane. You're Y-O-U-R an anti-Semite. No, I'm very proud of my anti-Semitism, but I'm very much a supporter of Palestine, Syria, Iran, all the Semitic people of that region, they get my support. Semitism, just so people understand. So this is the only time you'll see me do this, but it's because I just don't want any crybaby. So we go Semitism definition. Oops. And we bring up the that's dictionary.com. We're going Merriam-Webster. Okay. Everybody accepts that Merriam-Webster's dictionary is the #1 word source, right? We all say that. Nothing funny going on. Semitism page. Semitism. Okay, Semitism. Webster's Semitism. #1A, policy, or a #1A, Semitic character or qualities. #1B, a characteristic feature of a Semitic language occurring in another language. Spider. #2, policy or predisposition favorable to friars. Policy or predisposition favorable to friars.
Semitism.
That is supremacy. When you demand that the rules and regulations, the policy, and the predisposition is even crazier. Predisposition is like if your mom's, even if you live like a clean life and you don't drink, you only eat the best food, you still have a really good chance of getting cancer because you have a predisposition to it. It's basically genetic programming. And so Semitism is that the rules and regulations and the genetic programming is favorable to one group of people who essentially hate us. They hate everyone else. So when people bring up, it's like, why do you think that's even a term, right? Why do you think they say anti-Semitism when they're implying that you're anti-Jewish? Why do you think it works out that way? Why wouldn't they just say he's anti-friar? Why did they actually have to hijack a word? Because anti-Semitism initially meant exactly what it is. It was opposing the policy and predisposition, the favoritism that they demanded. It was It was first coined in Germany in the 1880s or whatever. And just like the term blood libel, they hijacked it. You know, blood libel. Here we go. I just don't want to. I know the shit, but I just want to make sure it's word for word perfect, so there's no crybaby. Because that's basically my only real opposition is crybaby. I don't actually get anybody that addresses anything that's said. Like, watch. Do you guys follow the border security channel? The Detroit Windsor Ambassador Bridge border control stops are notorious for the drug bust. Who gives a fuck? Right? Like, it's silly. What? Who cares? Stop this song. So, we are going to go with. Oh shit! What was I going to look up? Oh, I forgot what I was looking up. That's what happens when I read these dumbass comments. You're the real crybaby. Yep. If your son became a Christian, would you support him? He wouldn't. I'm not worried about it. Look, we're going to hear all kinds of things. TDS people are ignorant. Yes, yes. The people that think, you know, we shouldn't support a pedophile, because obviously you're a pedophile yourself. If you support a pedophile, you're a pedophile. So apparently Ricky Smith 1974 is a pedophile. Okay, then because of the caliber of people that. Yep, that's what it is. We know you don't give a fuck about this country, its laws, and its law enforcement. Yeah, you're right. I don't care about this country at all. This country, like I don't believe that because my parents happen to have sex in the United States that somehow I deserve more rights, or I'm somehow better than, you know, I deserve more right to life than children whose parents happen to have sex in different places. Like that inherent, like, racism, supremacy, arrogance is just such a joke. Yeah. But the thing is, I know this shit a lot more than better than you do. Like, I understand a lot of this stuff better than you do, which is why you say dumb things instead of arguing the points. It's not a matter of hate, it's a matter of the belief that they are the chosen over others. I don't support genocide, but I also don't support superiority. It's you know, everybody sort of believes themselves to be great. That's one thing, but as you say, believes themselves to be superior over everyone else. And it's not just the superiority, it's that they take. It's not like they're like, we are superior, we're all by ourselves, leave us alone. It's like, we are superior. You know, like Israel is supposed to be a utopia for them. It's not supposed to be someplace where they have to work hard and all that. And most people don't understand that it's as conspiracy theory as it gets. If I say, like, what's the biggest conspiracy theory name? You know, if I was going to bring up a name, a family, what is the one that's most associated with conspiracy? And that would have to be Rothschild, right? Rothschild, Rockefeller, but Rothschild's the biggest one. The first Aliyah, which isn't actually accurate, the friars have been trying to colonize Palestine for a very long time, for much longer than the first Aliyah, at least according to the narrative. Personally, I think their thing sort of came to exist in the 1830s or 40s, but then again, I don't believe in any of that stuff anyway. I don't believe what they tell us about that bullshit anyway. So I know that Hebrew was invented in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They say it was revived, but it was invented. You don't just lose a language and then revive it using Arabic. That doesn't make any sense. But, like, this is, you know, the Rothschild thing is as conspiracy as it gets, and without Rothschild, without Baron Rothschild, Israel wouldn't be here today. Israel was supposed to be this utopia. They weren't planning on working there. They wanted it to be like it is now, where they show up and say, the law of return says as long as you have one grandparent that was a friar, even if you're not practicing, if they weren't practicing, it doesn't matter. As long as you can have that friar identity traced back, you can come to Israel and you will be given the boat, the full boat. And so the way they have it set up nowadays is how they wanted it to be back then, where again they just show up, they're given a big piece of land, a big old mansion, free this, free that, their stipend check each week, each month, whatever. That's how they wanted it to be, but it wasn't there yet. And in around the 1890s, a little maybe 1888, 1889, at least again according to the narrative we're given, they were failing. They were fleeing. They were losing because it was harder than they thought. Because they had to do some farming and building and stuff, and they just weren't prepared for that. And so at the last minute, Baron Rothschild steps in, buys up all the land, all the factories and vineyards and olive groves and basically all the property that became Israel was bought by Baron Rothschild and then given to the friars. Here, you guys can have this. Literally, it's as conspiracy theory as it gets, but it's the truth. There's just no denying it. Here, I know people are gonna try to deny it, so. It's weird how hard it is to get this. Okay, so the first Aliyah, also known as agricultural Aliyah, was a major wave of friar immigration to Ottoman Palestine between 1881 and 1903. Friars who migrated in this wave, listen to how this is presented. Friars who migrated in this wave came mostly from Eastern Europe, stimulated by pogroms and violence against the friar communities there. Keep that in mind for when later they say they started to fail, so they went back to their countries of origin. I thought they were fleeing violence and pogroms. A smaller number came from areas such as Yemen and were primarily motivated by religious purposes. Estimates of the number of friars who immigrated range from 25,000 to a total 60,000. That's a pretty big difference. With between 50 and 70% who later immigrated elsewhere. By the way, if you're watching, like, share, sub, help out. You've never seen a feed like this, but you'll see. The censorship is definitely real on my shit. So, help out. Many of the European friars immigrated during the late 19th and early 20th century period, gave up after a few months, and went back to their country of origin, often suffering from hunger and disease. So just think about this. Just think about this. It's the 1880s. What do you picture 1880s look like? What do you picture the travel look like? At the end, if the day, they still winning. What? Okay, whatever. Yeah. Oh, but it's 1880s. From Europe to Palestine is like 1,500 miles. From Russia, from the United States, we're talking a lot farther. So these are supposedly poor people, just poor friars just trying to make a living, who are fleeing violence and pogroms against them. Yet they still have the financial ability to move themselves and their family to a different country where there is no setup. I mean, think about it. You're going to move to a different country with nothing, and you just like, all right. And it's even worse because supposedly This is a region that doesn't want you there. Like, it's one thing to say people did that in America all the time. Sure. But, you know, we're talking about the hostile Middle East. They didn't like the friars there, remember? So they under the auspices, the promises of excuse me, of you know, the utopia that they require, they somehow packed up and moved to Israel or to Palestine, where after a few months they failed, and they were suffering from hunger and disease. So then they what? Went back. It says they went back to their country of origin. Well, if the country of origin didn't want them and they were fleeing, how did they just back to the country of origin? Like, this is the kind of stuff where these are like the mundane things. People like to focus on the really like fantastic sort of things, and the Rothschilds and the, you know, it's anything with your stupid Bible bullshit, right? But this is just more kind of common sense, like how, you know, the logistics of things. And as I always say, the logistics of whatever story it is, like the fake Trump shooting. As soon as you start looking at the logistics of things, it really breaks down the argument, and it just doesn't make any sense. How are these guys all everywhere they go? Makes sense, right? During the first Aliyah, agricultural settlements called Moshava were established. The immigrants engaged almost exclusively in agriculture. At the beginning of the period, the friar population in Ottoman Palestine was around 26,000. Yeah, they know. Over the course of the first Aliyah, many immigrants arrived from different countries in Europe, Africa, and Asia. By the end of this period, the friar population in Ottoman Palestine had grown to approximately 55,000. So this is an invasion, right? This is an invasion. We're talking about people going to a place that doesn't want them, that isn't going there to help and make the place better. They're going there to enslave the people and live their privileged life. That's what they wanted. That's how this was supposed to work. Why do you care about the friars so much? Because I'm trying to cut the head off the monster. You guys all want to talk about tentacles. Well, what did Trump say? And what about the chemtrails? And what about the earth shape? And what about vaccines? And all of these different conspiracies, all these different distractions, all these different tentacles, that even if you could cut one of those tentacles off, it's either going to grow back in two, or it's just not going to be noticed. It's not going to affect anything. In order to kill the monster, we have to cut the head off the monster. So if you want the answer to the chemtrails, to the vaccines, to the Trump government bullshit, to the pedophilia, you want to stop all these things and fix all these things, stuff that you don't even think about, like the fluoride in our water. Because, you know, you don't even think about that one, do you? Fluoride's put in our water, and it supposedly has it might have a 3% to 20% chance of or preventing cavities in adult teeth. It might. It's a toxic waste byproduct. Like vaccines and shit are things that you choose. Everybody is for 82% of the American population. This is a while ago. Who knows what it is now? Are drink or have fluoridated water. The Cochrane study that everything is based on, like, you assume that in order for them to put toxic waste byproduct into our drinking water, there must be like a lot of research and stuff to show the benefits of it, right? You believe that the toxic waste that is so fucking toxic. It has to be transported. So you can't touch it. It's like 0.04 parts per million or some shit like that. That's how toxic this shit is. They couldn't dump it anywhere. They had to figure out something to do with it. But the Cochrane study was nothing. And even then, it showed that, like, if we were in a plane and I gave you a parachute and I was like, all right, jump, this might have a 3 to 26% chance of opening. The parachute might open 1 out of 4 times. It might. Would you do it? Would you jump out? Or would you demand a better parachute? But it's all these kinds of things where you don't realize, like, just how fucked up it is. Just how much they interfere and how much they poison us and they manipulate us and they fuck with us. The majority of you call yourself Christians and you don't even know why. If I ask you, why are you a Christian? Why are you a specific Christian, a Lutheran, a Mormon, or whatever, a Pentecostal, a Baptist, whatever, or you're a Muslim, are you Wahhabi or whatever? If I ask you, why are you that particular religion, and how can you prove that all of the other ones are wrong, you have nothing to say. Well, the Bible says, no, outside the Bible. How can you prove it? Duh, they get mad. Right? They're never going to answer that question because they can't. This dude is the modern Archie Bunker. Yeah, that makes sense. Again, Archie Bunker was surrounded by friars. Every other character on the show was a friar. And what they like to do is, like with Don Rickles or Ari Shaffir, they like to pretend like they're racist against everybody, so that sort of absolves them from accountability. But, like, again, with guys like Ari Shaffir, when he makes fun of the friars, he makes fun of how rich they are, how smart they are, how mean they are. He doesn't make fun of them for being the pedophiles that they are. He doesn't make fun of them for being, the disgusting people that they are. And you see that across the board. Don Rickles used to do the same thing. There was this one, if you guys remember Comic Relief, if you're old like me, it was this comedy tour in the late 80s, early 90s. Robin Williams, Billy Crystal, and Whoopi Goldberg would have a whole bunch of comedians come. They do these big old stadium style shows, and they would raise money for, I don't remember what it was for, what fucking fake cause it was, whatever. And Don Rickles was one of the comics. And so Don goes out to do his set, and as he starts talking, his microphone doesn't work, and he looks down and he's like, what the fuck? So a black stagehand comes sort of to the side. Don walks over to him, grabs the mic, turns and walks away, takes like 5-10 steps or something like that. Turns around, he has the broken mic in his, he has both mics in his hand. He says, takes the broken mic and throws it not towards the guy, but towards the side and says, go fetch. And the crowd goes, oh, boo, boo. And he's like, yeah, boo, boo, whatever, boo, boo. I make fun of everyone. I make fun of the black man. I make fun of the Jewish man. Well, not really the Jewish man, but you get the picture. This is how they operate, right? You need to consult a doctor about a possible intracranial rectal removal. Like, see again, now, this is how they operate. We're going to come back to the first Aliyah, but I want you guys to hear something. Because this has to do with the first Aliyah. You're actually going to hear this term come up while I'm reading the first Aliyah. So, auto-emancipation is something, as soon as you start looking into beyond the surface of things, this is when you're going to start finding your real truth. So auto-emancipation is a pamphlet written anonymously in German by a Russian, Polish, friar, doctor who was a doctor because In Russia, friars weren't allowed to practice law. So he got his law degree, but wasn't allowed to practice law. So he just decided to become a doctor instead, because that's how that works, right? Russian Polish friar doctor and activist Leon Pinsker in 1882. So it appeared, was published in 1882, but it was published anonymously. And Leon Pinsker eventually was assigned this. It was eventually said, oh yeah, Leon Pinsker wrote this, but they didn't know this at the time. It is considered a founding document of modern friar nationalism, especially Zionism. Now, just so there's no miscommunication here, misconstruing, Zionism on the locked up page here, on the locked up Wikipedia page, Zionism is an ethno-cultural nationalist movement that emerged in the late 19th century, which we're reading about, Europe, to establish and support a friar homeland through colonization in the region of Palestine, which roughly corresponds to the land of Israel in friarism, itself central to friar history, because friar history is different than everybody else's history, apparently. And it's interesting that they say this emerged in the late 90s to colonize the region of Palestine. They've been trying to do that forever. This is just, it's like when they report the deaths in Palestine, right? They used to do this every year. They would say there were 350 total civilian Palestinian deaths this year at the hands of the Israelis, along with an excursion where 235 were killed, and then another time when another 182 were killed. And you're like, wait, don't all those count together? Or I guess if you report it separately, it makes it sound not as bad. And that's what they do with these aliyahs. The first aliyah, the second aliyah, the third, and the fourth, the fifth. It's all one big invasion. But if they break it down, like if you were to look at it as a whole, each aliyah is bringing in 50, 60, 100,000 friars into Palestine. Well, if you say, oh, well, it went up from 26,000 to 55,000 in this time, but you don't add it all up. If you add up all the aliyahs, you're talking about millions of people invading an area that didn't want them. But we'll get there. Zionists wanted to create a friar state in Palestine with as much land, as many friars, and as few Palestinian Arabs as possible. That's what it says, right? God wills. What the fuck does that even mean? God wills. Do you know how stupid you have to be to hear what's being said and be like stupid and arrogant, right? Like, I need to be heard. I need to say something, but you can't say anything. You just say something stupid like God wills. Anyway, Pinsker, so especially Zionism, right? Look at how this is presented to you. That's the opening paragraph, a picture of the supposed pamphlet, and then immediately the next paragraph is Pinsker discusses the origins of anti-Semitism. Ooh, the very first thing is to paint them as themselves as victims. Not to say friars are great because we bring this to the community, we make the community better because of this, and we, nothing like that. It's immediately why they're the victims. Pinsker discussed the origins of anti-Semitism and argued for friar self-rule and the development of a friar national consciousness. He wrote that friars would never become the social equals of Goyim until they had a state of their own. He called on friar leaders to convene and address the problem. In the pamphlet, this is important, he describes anti-friar attacks. Basically, if you don't accept their supremacy, if you don't accept that they should get whatever they want, whenever they want, anti-friar attacks as a psychosis, a pathological disorder, and an irrational phobia. Just like they do on here, right? They don't answer any of the questions. They don't debate anything. They come here and this guy's crazy. He's schizophrenic. This guy's delusional. He has mental problems. Take your meds. Take your meds. Take your meds is such an anthem for them. They actually made the South Park episode about Cupid Ye. So Cupid Me is this little naked version of Cartman, because South Park loves drawing kid penises. Obviously they're friars, so that makes sense. But he has this little angel thing, this little Cupid. He calls it Cupid Me, who flies around on Valentine's Day and shoots people with arrows and tee-hee, and shoots people. Well, this year, Cupid Me wasn't taking his medication. And when he doesn't take his medication, he turns into Cupid Ye. Kanye, has a hat on, has a leather jacket. And he goes around telling everyone that Kyle controls Hollywood. Now, in my feed, in the description, after the fact, you can go see it if you want to look at a previous video, but the second link that you'll find in my shit is a movie called Hollywoodism. And it's a flex that they put out in 1998. It's all them, again, like Israel Hayom, top to bottom, all them, writers, cameramen, actors, all of it is all them. It's like a documentary sort of thing. And it's about not necessarily how they created Hollywood, but that they did create Hollywood, and that they ran it with an iron fist forever, and that they still do. It's not like they didn't give up the most powerful weapon ever created, but it's how they used Hollywood to not just create the world or the America that they wanted to live in, but the world they wanted to live in. One of the quotes that said more than once is essentially, you could say, the American dream is the Jewish dream. Right? This is what they say. This is their film. They put it out. So when South Park is suggesting that you would be absolutely crazy to suggest that Kyle controls Hollywood, it's like, why are you saying that? I say this all the time. Even when Kanye said it, because Kanye was, a company man doing his job. Remember when all you thought Kanye was going to be the next one to kirk himself? And I was like, nah, he's just working. But Kanye even said, they're in everybody makes money off of them. They're in everybody's contracts. Everyone in the entertainment industry has friars that make money off of them. And instead of saying the natural, normal thing and saying, yeah, you know what? A lot of us do work in the industry, and we did put this whole industry together through a lot of painstaking effort and hard work to create a place where everyone from all walks of life can come share their art, become famous, make a lot of money. The stuff that you see in Hollywood, music and movies, and that all takes a lot more than just what you see. There's a lot more than just the actors. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes. And yeah, you know what? We are very good at it. We've done a very good job of creating an environment where everyone can be equal. That would be the normal, natural thing for them to say. Instead, they say, you can't say that. Don't you say that. They put out the South Park episode that Cupid Me, who's now Cupid Ye, is crazy for suggesting that Kyle controls Hollywood. And the whole episode, they're running around. Cartman's trying to get Cupid Ye to take your meds. Take your meds. It said over and over again. Take your meds. Because medical, mental issues and what. That's funny, right? Ha, it's so funny. Take your meds. Ha. And eventually, Cartman catches Cupid Ye, holds him down, and forces a little light blue rectangular pill in his mouth. And the last thing he says is, no, man, these pills mess up my mind. But he swallows the pill. And as soon as he swallows it, his outfit disappears and he floats up. And now he's back to being regular Cupid. And he's tee-hee, tee-hee, and he's going around just tee-hee, love and happiness. Once you take your medication, you stop seeing the truth. You stop saying the truth, is the moral of that story. But they've been literally, if you've ever tried talking Israel or tried talking friar stuff with any of them, you undoubtedly run into the same shit. They never actually answer anything. Like, look at the comment section. I know I don't have to read the comments because nobody is addressing what I'm saying. For some reason, it sure seems like a lot of people are mad at what I'm saying, which doesn't really make sense. Why would Americans, why would Christians, Muslims, why would anybody but friars be mad at what I'm talking about? Right? And this touches on act.il, which, again, as much as I want to read the first Aliyah, we have to go in order here. So act.il, again, we have another completely locked up page. And wait, let's solve this argument real quick. So Naftali Bennett is a former, in 2026, he's a former Israeli prime minister. He was a prime minister during the 3 years from 2019 to 2022, when Israel had 6 different prime ministers in 3 years. Naftali Bennett was the prime minister from June of 2021 to June of 2022, when he just mysteriously stepped down as prime minister and Yair Lapid took over until November of that year, when they put the Netanyahu coalition in a way that they can't be voted out or anything. Like, Netanyahu is a dictator at this point. The only way Netanyahu loses power from this point on is if he dies, hopefully, or he steps down. But Naftali Bennett played his part. He was the guy from June of 2021 to June of 2022. And prior to that, for decades, he's been a high-ranking Israeli operative, just doing their business. This is him in 2010 speaking to IsraelNationalNews.com. Okay.
In conjunction with My Israel, has arranged an instruction day for wiki editors. The goal of the day is to teach people how to edit in Wikipedia, which is the #1 source of information today in the world.
Okay, did you just hear that? So every time he says that's him trying to think of what's the best word. We're here to demand an instruction day, again, demand, for the wiki editors, the editors of Wikipedia, which is the #1 source of information in the world. So they were already the #1 source of information in the world, and they needed Israel to come tell them how to do their job. If you're watching, like, share, sub. If this shit makes sense to you, or whatever, like, share, sub, help out. 48 views and 12 likes don't make no sense outside of censorship. Let's just see.
As a way of example, if someone searches the Gaza flotilla, we want to be there. We want to be the guys who influence what is written there, how it's written, and to ensure that it's balanced and Zionist in nature.
Okay, so he doesn't even really hide it. He's saying that if you're searching for something, especially something that has to do with their shit, like the original Gaza flotilla, people think the Gaza flotilla was Greta Thunberg. It wasn't. The original Gaza flotilla, which was the same thing, a bunch of ships, trying to break the blockade of Gaza back in 2010. So all of you that think this started in 2023, October 7th, 2023, when no Israelis were killed or taken hostage, it was a big false flag. Funny how when I ask you guys to like, share, and sub, suddenly my view count starts going down. Isn't that weird? Don't you think that's weird how that works? Sure, it's just a coincidence. But the original Gaza Flotilla is where Ken O'Keefe's bitch ass comes from. Do we got any Ken O'Keefe fans on here? That piece of shit. It's amazing to me that that piece of shit stole $130,000+ from the people, booked it to Colombia, spent all the money, hid out for a couple of years, and then reemerged on the scene, and everybody's just like, oh, hey, Ken, what's going on? Where you been, brother? Nobody fucking talks about it. But in the original Gaza Flotilla, just as always, Israel, you know, there's like 6 or 8 ships trying to bring aid to the Gazans. At like 3 or 4 in the morning in international waters, Israel descends on the flotilla. It's all illegal. It's all fucking illegal. The first boat that they were on happened to be the boat Ken O'Keefe was on. And apparently Ken, being a tough guy that he is, didn't want to give in, and he started fighting back. Israel claims they lost one soldier. One soldier was, but you never know with them. It's probably not true. But there were 9 people total on the boat. 11 people total on the boat, 9 of which were killed. Later found out that 6 of the 9 killed were killed execution style, meaning they were on their knees and somebody shot them in the fucking head. Boom. You know, because that's okay. And the 2 that survived that got let go by Mossad, one of which was Ken O'Keefe. Do you really believe that? But later on, when this went to trial, Israel was found not guilty because they were defending themselves. And if the flotilla would have just allowed the Israelis to pirate their ship, take them hostage, and take them to Israel and whatever, then nobody would have died. But because they resisted the Israeli pirates, that gave Israel the right to not only kill 9 of 11, but 6 of them execution style. That's the Gaza Flotilla that he mentioned. And I know that story because I went to Wikipedia and I looked it up just as he suggested. And he says, so when people look this, here's an example, just in case you're misconstruing or you're not understanding what I'm saying here. If somebody looks up the Gaza Flotilla, we want to be there. We want to be the guys that influence what is written, how it's written, and to ensure that it's balanced and Zionist in nature. The whole Gaza Flotilla part is his rehearsed story. He was prepared for that. He didn't need an to think about what to say. When he got to the end, he said, balanced and paints Israel in a fair light, paints Jews fairly. You know what? Nah, fuck it. Balanced and Zionist in nature. Right? So everybody that's going to cry about me using Wikipedia is their source. It's what they want us to use. It might not be 100% true, but it's 100% the truth that they want us Goyim to know. So that's, if you're going to cry about it, anybody can edit Wikipedia. No, they can't. That's why there are editors. You might be able to suggest an edit, but it then goes to the editors to check to see if it's balanced and Zionist in nature. And if it fits the narrative, they allow the edit. If it doesn't, they dismiss it. Let's take this a step further. I don't usually play this last part, but this sort of proves it.
More about how we as Israelis and as Jews can defend Israel
As Israelis
on the
and as
internet,
Jews.
and particularly in Wikipedia in this case. Wikipedia is a bit of a complex system, and it's sometimes hard to figure out the rules. I personally tried to edit things in Wikipedia that were against Israel, small things, and my changes were erased or undone, and I didn't understand why.
You understand? I tried to edit Wikipedia in a pro-Israel way and some stuff that I thought it should say. and my changes were erased or undone. And I couldn't understand why. I'm chosen. If I make those edits should stay. I don't understand. Why aren't these edits staying when I do them in regards to Israel? What the fuck just happened?
I think it would start cutting.
metzitzia.
And as Jews can defend Israel, I personally tried to edit things in Wikipedia that were against Israel, small things, and my changes were erased or undone, and I didn't understand why.
Oh, she says more. This is just a shorter version of it. Let's see. Well, it's funny. The one I used to look at all the time isn't here anymore for some strange reason.
And in general, it's so important to say this isn't quite right. It's showing up, and I think that this kind of knowledge is important for anyone who wants to in Wikipedia that were against Israel, small things, and my changes were erased or undone, and I didn't understand why. And I think that this kind of knowledge is important for anyone who wants to be active in defending Israel on the internet, so that we can go and we can see the information and we can say this isn't quite right. It's showing one side of the story, and I have the power and the right to change that.
I have the power and the right. I love how they always say how they have the right to change narratives if they want to, or they have the right to defend themselves, or they have the right to exist. Really? Nobody else does, though. But it just, the entitlement, you know, the insanity in what this bitch is saying, it really is so much if you just listen.
And in general, it's so important for us to be online, working to defend ourselves and to prove to the world and to ourselves.
And the thing is, the one thing they always say is, you're only getting one story. Well, who do you think is providing that one side of the story? Like when they say, oh, that's Hamas propaganda. That's IRGC propaganda. Who owns all of the media? Who owns all of the news outlets, the TV stations, the networks and all that? How in the fuck would Hamas propaganda ever make it into anything? Like, it's just, they're so stupid, and they contradict themselves so often. But, you know, she's talking about how, you know, if she reads something she doesn't like, she has the right to change it. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. You're only getting one side of the story. Like, what kind of stupid shit is that? And these are all, like, pull cord things. Everything she's saying is just rehearsed. We have the right to do this. We have the power. You're only getting one side. Like, these are all things that they say while avoiding actual conversation.
Justin, we are right. And because right now, if you look online, if you do searches for certain terms related to Israel, it's just filled with anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and garbage. And there's not enough of us out there working to counteract that and make sure that the other side of the story, our side of the story, and our right side of the story is getting the right coverage and the coverage that it needs. So this type of initiative, an initiative like...
Why is there so much against them? Why are they so persecuted? Why does everybody hate them so much? Stuff that never gets talked about, right? Nobody ever wants to address the why. And one of the biggest things is the circumcision. They're metzitzia. Metzitzia bapeh, which is the third part of the Brit Milah ritual, where they actually suck on it. After they cut it, they suck on it. Well, the moil sucks on it. Like, this is, we're talking about a pedophile cult that's foundations are pedophilia. You know, Hanukkah is a celebration of circumcision. It's not, you know, it's not 8 crazy days and it's a celebration of circumcision. It's fucking insane. Right? Oh, look, Rabbi Ebosh is here. He called me a loser. This is a guy who, when I asked him about the Talmud, what the Talmud says about how when a Goyim rapes a child, they should be rightfully killed. But when one of them rapes a child, if the child is under 3 years and 1 day, it basically doesn't happen. It's non-existent. It's like a, quote, poke in the eye. That's, they're micro penises. So maybe that's why they think that way. I don't really know. But it's literally, the Talmud quote is that everything grows back and that it's just like a poke in the eye. However, if the child is over 3 years and 1 day, and between 3 years and 1 day and 12 years and 1 day, then the rapist is now required to pay the family of the victim the, quote, full dowry, which is 50 shekels or 100 dinars, depending on where you are. And now the victim belongs to their victimizer somewhere in between a slave and a wife. And at 13, when they become an adult, they have their bat mitzvah or whatever. After they become 13, they start popping out kids. Just ask Rabbi Shmuley. Rabbi Shmuley's parents are the same way, that the father is at least 10 years older than the mother. And the mother was having children from about 13. That's just how it works. It's part of their, they live by the Talmud. They don't live by the Talmud in every way but a couple that make Goyim uncomfortable, that upset the Goyim. They don't care about how we feel. They're not going to stop doing something because we don't like it. It's just not how that works. But the child is over 12, because at 12 years and 1 day, they become betrothed, right? The adult male, the 10-year, 15-year older male, purchases his wife. He selects whatever little girl he likes. He gives the family the 50 shekels. And then at 13, once she becomes an adult, that the 13, the bar mitzvah, like it's sort of like it's like why everybody gives him so much money. It's sort of like the send off. It's like, all right, here you go. Now you belong to this guy. And they start popping out kids. I mean, it's just what it is. It's why, in the Bible, Mary was 12 years old when she got pregnant. That's why she was with Joseph, who was at least 12 years older than her. Look at, now the rabbi character that I'm saying is a pedophile is now making pizza comments, right? While we're talking about child rape, he starts talking about pizza stuff. Do you guys think that's just coincidental? And he's already done this many times. He knows for a fact what he's doing. You don't just accidentally post the #1 child rape associated symbol in a chat where they're talking about child rape, and you just accidentally did it. Just out of the blue, just felt like telling people about his affinity for fucking pizza. That's all that is, right? Remember, this is the guy that when I talked about this and I asked him how it's okay for adult men to rape children, he said, it's not rape, it's an act of God. He said it's not rape, it's an act of God. That's what this piece of shit said when confronted with it. He could have said anything else. This is what he chose to say. And if again, who makes pedophile jokes? Who jokes about pizza and shit when people are talking about pedophilia? Who thinks pedophilia is funny even a little bit? They do. They do. This piece of shit says it's an act of God to rape children. And so, like I say, Mary, the narrative is that she was with Joseph, but she was still a virgin. And haven't you ever wondered, like, how was she with Joseph, but still a virgin? They can't even be married if they have to consummate the marriage. That's what that whole thing means. Nowadays, it's just stupid. Nowadays, it's just fucking whatever. But back then, virginity was very important. You couldn't have these piece of shit friars couldn't have their female have somebody to compare them to. They're supposed to think that the micro penis is all that they get, and they should be happy with it. Because if the girl is betrothed, she's 12 years old or in betrothed, but gets violated, or if they did the betrothal earlier, that happens too. The fine is now doubled. Now the rapist has to pay a double fine of 100 shekels. And the marriage is off because the rapist is paying that 100 shekels to take to take that ownership. And so again, the reason why Mary and Joseph were married, but she was still a virgin, is because she wasn't married, she was just betrothed. This is just we hadn't quite gotten there yet. And rebuke Satan. And that Joseph was, if you just look at the body, he's significantly older than Mary. They don't actually give her age because they're trying to hide it. But Mary is a Jewish woman. Jesus was a Jew. Joseph was a Jew. In their Jewish customs, that's how this works. At 12 years old, they get betrothed. They're on the chopping block. They start to be groomed to the particular male that they're betrothed to. They get groomed to his liking. So that at 13, they're ready to go. They're ready to, again, ask Rabbi Shmuley. His parents are the same way. His mom was 24 when she had him, the youngest of 5 kids. Maybe it's 4 kids, 4 or 5 kids. And it was, quote, after they took a break from having kids, he was like, oops, baby. So it was at least 3 years between him and his next oldest sibling. Meaning his mother was 21 when at least 21, she could be younger, when she had his next oldest sibling. But there's still 3 more. And even if she's having kids as quickly as possible, you're still looking at roughly 2 years between each kid. That's 8 years. 21 minus 8 gives you 13 right on the dot. That's how their whole system is set up. That's why this works this way, you guys. That's why your silly Jesus was born to 13-year-old Mary. The virgin pregnancy. Nobody's a virgin. Like, if you watch Gypsy Wedding Show, you see the girls talking about how by the time they're 18, 19, they're too old. They don't want to be thought of as some old woman who didn't get married when she was 16. And the only reason they wait till they're 16 is because of the laws. But where do you think those weird-ass traditions come from? These gypsies are the super religious, while their daughters look like whores. I mean, it's fucking crazy, right? But like I say, this rabbi character has proven to be a pedophile numerous times. It's really disgusting that they're so brazen about it now. They used to at least have the decency to sort of hide it. Nowadays, they seem proud of it. And I can't tell you how to think, right? But I know me. I have zero tolerance. Zero. No excuses, no nothing. If you say, oh, I was abused as a kid, well, then you know what that shit does firsthand. How dare you do that to somebody else? The only thing worse than a pedophile is a pedophile who was abused himself or herself and chose to do that to a child, knowing what it does. Right? You guys are fucking nuts, man. You guys are just disgusting. And you guys notice how I'm speaking factually, and I'm reading you guys, you know, the proof and all these, showing you guys everything I can to validate and back up what I'm saying using their information. Remember, Wikipedia is their thing. Notice how they don't do the same thing back to me. They don't even address what's being said in any sort of debating, you know, debunking sort of fashion. They cry a lot. They tell me I'm not supposed to say that. They try to tell you guys not to watch this. But they don't actually debunk or refute anything I'm saying. Like act.il. Act.il is a social networking service used by supporters of Israel to oppose online, quote, Israel content such as the BDS movement, boycott, divestments, and sanctions. Activities were referred to as, quote, an online propaganda campaign and, quote, a virtual situation room of pro-Israel experts. Listen to how this is worded. Anybody can edit Wikipedia, but whatever you say. Okay, so even on those pages where you think you can edit Wikipedia, again, you can't. That's why they have editors. This is one of those pages that nobody's allowed to edit. Right? And you know what? Here, let's take it one step further. So the article, which is one of many, that page is based on, comes from something called jewishcurrents.org. Jewish Currents is a, you know, very prominent Jewish publication. Can't hide behind, well, that's just anti-Semitism. Because it is. It's proudly anti-Semitism. Everything I do is proudly anti-Semitism, is anti-supremacy. I oppose your policy and predisposition being favorable to you. I oppose that. I am proud of it. Anti-Semitic, I take offense to, right? Because I absolutely support the Palestinians, the Lebanese, the Yemeni, the Iranians, the Syrians. I support all of the Semitic people of the region. Even though DNA testing is banned in Israel for this reason, the latest studies that came out said 95% of Israelis tested did not have Semitic DNA. They came from places like Ukraine, Europe, the Americas, the United States. Right? Like, this is all just right in front of you. But this is really big here. So this is Jewish Currents again. You can try to hide behind it all you want. It's called Call of Duty. An app called Act.il has adapted IDF communication strategies into a massive multiplayer online game. Daniel Lark, August 10th, 2020. An image showing that Act.il uses to illustrate its mission, showing a keyboard with an Israeli flag. There you go. All right. This year on Nakba Day, the annual May 15th commemoration of the mass displacement and genocide of Palestinians during the establishment of the State of Israel, Palestinians gathered on the internet to remember their history and to remind the global public of their struggle, unable to meet in person due to COVID-19 restrictions. Activists arranged virtual reality tours of Gaza and the West Bank, shared personal and family stories, and promoted hashtags to mark the historic and historic trauma and its present ramifications. I mean, again, it's still a friar telling you this, so they're fucking stupid, right? They do have the highest Neanderthal DNA, though. No, they don't. Like, when it starts coming to that kinds of shit, it's all just fake bullshit. Remember that commercial for the DNA, whatever one, Ancestry or whatever, where it was like, in my family, we grew up Scottish. we had, or whatever. We had kilts. We ate haggis. We celebrated blah, 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 this, that, and the other. Then I did my DNA test, and it turns out we're actually German. So we traded in our kilt for some lederhosen and blah, blah, blah. Like, we just gave up all our family traditions and everything because this little test that we don't know who does it, how it's done, they told us that we weren't actually this. We were German with 1 or 2% Jewish. Funny how everybody seems to be 1 or 2% Jewish from those things. But they're basically just brainwashing you that if they tell you that you're something else, you go, okay, I'm something else now. Your magic Scantron scanny scanner, it can detect the black genes. It can detect this. Come on. The same day, a special mission appeared on the app and Facebook page of the online platform act.il, directing users to download a set of images and memes already cropped into Instagram-ready squares and then share them on social media under the hashtag #KeyToPeace. Designed to disrupt and delegitimize the observance of Nakba Day, the memes were replete with racist and violent imagery of Palestinians, pictures of suited men transforming into terrorists. That's Don't let terrorists hide in suits, it says. That's one of the pictures. Photos of children dressed in camo and war paint. Hundreds of these images soon appeared online, posted and shared by everyday users as well as prominent right-wing pro-Israel activists like Israeli American Council co-founder Adam Milstein. Israeli officials, wealthy megadonors, and Zionist activists increasingly speak of an, quote, online battle for Israel. And this language of war is not merely a figure of speech, as it has moved online. Hezbollah, the Hebrew term for Israeli propaganda pitched to foreign audiences, they're not even hiding it. Hezbollah is how they're trying to manipulate Goyim and foreigners into believing them. A key part of Zionist advocacy for decades has come to include cyber initiatives that work closely in concert with Israel's military. Perhaps the most ambitious of these initiatives is act.il, an app that has adapted IDF communications strategy into something like a massively multiplayer online game. Launched in 2017, act.il sends activists on, quote, missions to like, comment, and share pro-Israel material on social media, and to flag, report, and respond to Israel's online critics. Users jump from platform to platform, countering criticism of Israel with talking points and images that reflect a right-wing Zionist understanding of Friar and Israeli history, culture, and politics. The app encourages Israel supporters, and particularly Friar Americans, to imagine themselves as soldiers fighting for Israel on the front lines of a vicious cyber war. Notice how they refer to themselves as Friar Americans, not American friars. Friars first. And when people say African American, well, like Africa. They're black, they're from Africa, okay. Italian Americans, as goofy as that is, they're still from Italy. Where is Friar American? Where is Friar? Friar is not is not a racial identity. You can't convert to a race. I can't suddenly start talking in some super stereotypical, insulting, oh, look at me, I'm Chinese now. Everybody had to call me Chinese. And then if you don't, I'm like, oh, how dare you? You're disrespecting me because I converted to Chinese. Nobody would accept that. Nobody would even begin to fucking, entertain that bullshit. They'd say, shut the fuck up. You're being a douchebag. You have people like Sammy Davis Jr. and Nell Carter, who were black people who converted to friarism. If it's an identity, if it's a racial identity, there's nobody converting to it. So the idea of friar Americans is just stupid. The app's CEO, Yarden Ben Youssef, is a longtime Israeli intelligence officer who told The Forward in 2017 that Act.io's developers work closely, if informally, with Israeli military and intelligence officials. The app's enthusiastic gamification of propaganda and its slick startup veneer mask the direct extension of Israeli militarism and surveillance into diaspora friar communal life. I mean, it's like right here, right? This is an app with over 40,000 users when it was transferred. So the app was shut down supposedly in 2022, in March of 2022. The app itself was. There was still the page on Facebook and all the other places, but the app itself, the Paper Trail app, was shut down during their, the planning and the execution of the October 7th false flag. In early 2026, about 10 weeks ago, the app was reestablished, restarted up, but it was now called Rise App, R-I-S-E, capital A-P-P, all one word. And the user base, and they partnered with Reichman University, and the user base of 40,000, mostly Americans, was transferred to this Rise App. Who knows what it is now? But you literally have a foreign agency using American proxies to push the foreign agency's agenda openly. Like, this is treasonous kind of, spy bullshit. Like, this is awful. And yet nobody talks about it. These not only are these guys being used, they're paid. They pay them. You'll hear. We'll keep going. Oh, look, we have some dumbass flying. Luna is flying the pedophile flag. The blue and white flag that shows you who the pedophiles are. Go here. We have another one. Not going to be able to answer for anything. She's not going to be able to make sense of anything. She's not going to make any decent point or anything because she's stupid. They're all inbred and fucking stupid. Yeah, I'm Israel try. Like, why can't you just say your own shit? Why do you have to say shit that, like, is clearly programmed? Why can't you just, use regular fucking broken English like you always do? Because English isn't your first language, but why don't you just say real shit? Why don't you address what I'm saying? Why don't you say what I'm getting wrong? Why don't you do anything other than stereotypical act.il crybaby bullshit? Because the one thing you're going to find with this act.io is that, it says that they're programmed, they're given the provided talking points, how to respond to people, blah, blah, blah. The response is never, hey, let me explain to you what you're misconstruing. Let me help you understand why our people are the best chosen people and Israel should exist and all that shit. They don't ever engage in that conversation because they can't. They know they'll lose. These are pedophiles. Theirs is a pedophile cult. And anybody that, like this Luna, I would assume, is a female. So she's had it done to her. She's had soul correction done to her. She's had the bottom of darkness done to her. Female circumcision. They call it female circumcision. It's female genital mutilation. The same thing that when Arabs do it, you get really upset. Like when the Wahhabi Muslims of Saudi Arabia do that shit. We all get really upset about it, right? But as soon as they do it, we're just supposed to turn a blind eye. But they do the same thing. Anti-Semitic, no, remember, I'm very much supportive of the Semitic people, the Palestinians, the Lebanese. Do you guys know that Passover is every year is consistently, it's hard to believe it, but Israel actually spills more blood on Passover than they do any other time of year. And if you just look back, every Passover, they start a war, some sort of something. Usually it's in the beginning of Passover, but this last year, remember after the U.S. and Iran worked out a fire and all that, and then Israel just out of the blue decided to strike Lebanon with 100 strikes in 10 minutes. Yeah, that was the last day of Passover. Passover is about spilling blood. And it literally, I mean, its foundations, its origin myth is about spilling blood, right? Passover is supposed to be about the Exodus. The Exodus, the dumbest story in all of religion is Exodus. There's not a single person on here that actually believes Exodus because you're just not that stupid. You're smart enough to know that 2 to 3 million people can't walk around the desert for 40 years. Everybody knows that shit. It's such a common conclusion, right? Everybody knows it, that they had to make up a story about it. And they say, oh, well, in order to survive, in order for food and drink, every morning, God provided manna. Manna is like a tar-like resin substance that supposedly appeared on the sandy desert floor every morning and would have to be harvested every morning because it only lasted 24 hours. Except on Fridays, because they're not allowed to work on the Sabbath on Saturdays. So that manna, it knew better. It knew what day it was, and it lasted 48 hours. But for 40 years, basically all they ever ate or drank, and their livestock as well, was manna. And that's the narrative that they give because they have to come up with something. They can't just fucking tell you this story and go, yeah, they survived in the desert. How? 2 to 3 million people? The reason it's called Passover is because the friars were supposedly the slaves of the Egyptians, even though the Egyptians have no history of it. 2 million plus friars were Egyptian slaves. Moses and company kept begging the Pharaoh to let my people go. You've seen that bullshit, right? And because the Pharaoh was like, no, I'm not doing it. Bitch ass Yahweh, the friar God, who is just an absolute, like, you have to be a piece of shit person to want to follow Yahweh. Yahweh is such an asshole. Yahweh is such a childish, broken human kind of God. It's just a joke. But like, if you look at the story, you look at the miraculous, crazy shit associated with the story, you go, well, why did you do your miracles this way? Why not, instead of like just appearing to the Pharaoh and being like, let these friars go, why does Yahweh send the angel of death down and gives a warning to all the friars? The angel of death is coming to take the firstborn males of everyone in this community. And the way to prevent that is that they slaughtered a lamb. They only talk about a single lamb, so I don't, there were 600,000 friar men. So you would assume there's at least 500,000 dwellings that they live in with their wives and their multiple kids. We know they like to have 15, 18 kids. But basically, if they all just had 1 or 2 kids, you're talking about 2 million people, 3 million people. Anything over that, you're talking millions and millions. But they slaughtered 1 lamb and they took its blood and they smeared it over the door. And if by doing so, the angel of death, as he's going through the neighborhoods, because, you know, he's the angel of death, but he doesn't have the power to figure out who's who. He passes over your house if you have the blood above the doorstep. That's what Passover is. It's literally about spilling blood. And it's just been adapted into, nowadays they end up spilling Palestinian blood, usually large amounts of Palestinian blood, which is probably why Palestine still existed. Because let's just be honest here. Why the fuck did Israel take 90% of Palestine in 1948, 1967, bullshit, whatever? Why didn't they just take it all? If they would have just taken it all, by 2026, we wouldn't even be talking about it anymore. It would just be a blip in history. Do you know how many civilizations were wiped out so somebody else could live there? And we don't even know about it. We don't even talk about it to this day. And yet, instead of doing the smart thing, which would have been taking them out completely, Israel left. And again, Israel doesn't exist. Israel is just a construct. It's just, it's like when they say Hollywood used to be racist. No, Hollywood never did anything. Hollywood was just a place. It was the friars that controlled Hollywood that were really racist. And it's the same thing here. Israel is just a place. It's not, you know, it's not a real thing. But fuck, what was I talking about? It's a lot coming out here, so sometimes I get tripped up. I'm sorry. I'm not perfect. And I'm not editing like most. Yahweh was an Endemite volcano boogeyman turned kosher deity according to the archaeological data. Whose archaeological data? See, the problem is you have to get past all of it. You have to understand, until we Goyim unite and overthrow the friars that control the entire narrative, we don't know if any of it's true. Right? You don't know any of it. Archaeology doesn't tell you about Tartaria. And anything Tartarian, when it comes to archaeology, they go, oh, we don't know. Hey, how did they build all those giant cathedrals and castles and shit like that? Well, according to archaeology and science, be okay with that. Like, that's just how that works. We don't know. How'd they build all those catacombs underneath everything and then line it with bones all, you know, artistically and blah? How'd they do all that? But the thing is, Tartaria, again, is the best distraction they give us because it's so accurate. God told the friars they will never have land of their own and kicked them from the land he gave them for denying the sin of God as the truth. So stupid. So after the 40 years, when they finally make it out of the desert, surprisingly, basically in the same place they were in, they just walked around in circles and then came back out, same spot. Now they're at Mount Sinai. You know, again, they love to talk about these great distances in the Bible, like people were just using Godspeed to go everywhere. But, so now Moses goes up on top of Mount Sinai, you know. You've seen the fucking 10 Commandments, you know. And he's up there for 40 days. And while he's gone, the people just decide, oh, well, he's been gone for too long. We need an entirely new system. So Moses' brother has all of them donate all of the gold that they have, all their necklaces and rings and any gold they have stashed away, so he can melt it down and then pour it into the giant mold that he made, I guess. But he makes a giant golden calf statue. Big ass fucking giant, you know. Of which they all worship this golden calf now, the whole new set of beliefs, and they followed this dude for 40 years. He's gone for what, 2 weeks? I mean, it's not like he was gone for 40 days and then they decided that. I would imagine gathering up all the gold, melting it down, building the mold itself, letting it cool, dressing it up, and then coming up with all of the different beliefs that would be associated with it. I would imagine that would take more than a couple of days. So it basically makes it sound like Moses, didn't come back after a couple of days and they were like, fuck it, we need something new. As much as powerful and as important as this chosen we are, blah, blah, Yahweh, yada, yada, yada. After a couple of days or weeks, they were like, fuck it, let's do something else. And then Moses finally comes down after talking to the burning fucking bush. He sees that the golden calf is there and that they have abandoned his bullshit. And, like a real decent leader in person, he has a temper tantrum and smashes the tablet. God damn it. I can't. I had it all right here. I was going to show you, but no. You had a golden calf, so nobody sees the tablets. Just trust me. Trust me. And that's pretty much the story that you hear consistently throughout the Bible. Is that only the friars, were capable of building these God phones, of being able to have conversations with God, as long as nobody else was around to see it. Even though the Bible will have these conversations word for word in them, and then Moses said, and then God said, well, were there little naked butt cherubs there writing it down? Like, who wrote all this shit down? When Lot's 2 daughters are coming up with their plan for how they're going to get their father drunk so they can have sex with him, and the Sodom and Gomorrah, the story that's so against the gays. When the 2 daughters are in the cave planning out getting their 90-something-year-old father so drunk that he can't remember, doesn't know what he's doing, and has sex with his 2 virgin daughters. Again, 12, 11, some shit like that, 12, 10, who knows? They had to be young. They were betrothed, so they had to be 12-ish. If they were 13 or older, they would have already been married off and had, babies on the way and shit. But they're having this conversation in the back of a cave after everyone else but Lot and his 2 daughters have been killed. And their conversation is in the Bible. Who wrote that shit down? Right? I mean, you're just so stupid when you think about these things and still believe them. Like all the people that use Sodom and Gomorrah to justify their bigotry towards gay people. You all are just fucking stupid. You obviously don't know the story. You guys want to hear the story? You're going to hear the story. So, Sodom and Gomorrah are these 2 different towns, and apparently they have like, I don't know, a ring around them or something. A fence around them or something. I'm not really sure, but Lot is sitting on the fence talking to, or he's sitting there like, I don't know, whittling or some shit, when these 2 angels come walking up. But they're disguised as man, so he doesn't know they're angels. But Lot sees these 2 strangers walking by, and he's like, hey, you guys, why don't you, it's getting dark, why don't you come stay at my house for the night? And they're like, no thanks, we got to go over to this place, and we appreciate it, but no thanks. And Lot's like, you're crazy, it's really far, it's getting late, and I'll make you some unleavened bread. And they were like, oh shit, unleavened bread, let's do it. So then the Autobot symbol, and it's later. And again, it was like dusk when this conversation took place. So now it has to be dark. They're inside Lot's house, just enjoying their unleavened bread, when they hear a commotion outside. And they look, and all of the men from both Sodom and Gomorrah, you know, picture what minus 2,000, you know, 2,000, what, minus 200, whatever this fucking time is. Think about what you think that is in your head. You know, thatch roofs, people banging on anvils and shit. Clink, clink, like Game of Thrones kind of shit, but not as advanced, obviously. Game of Thrones really puts it into perspective how ridiculous the story that we're told is. All the different castles and shit that are everywhere. Who the fuck built those castles? But so you have all the men of both of these towns were like banging their anvils, putting their horseshoes on. Well, it's dark, so I guess they were sitting in their houses doing nothing when suddenly they somehow knew that two dudes were at this guy named Lot's house, and they're suddenly gay for those two guys. Not like gay in general, but gay for the two guys that they somehow know are at Lot's house. Right? Because that makes sense. Like they would just know this. And so now they're outside of Lot's house and they're like, hey, send out those two guys in there so we may know them. Fuck them. Right? And Lot's like, don't worry, I'll handle this. So he goes out front and he's like, hey, no, that's terrible. You can't. Can you come clean this? Chubby, can you come clean this? Pluke on the floor. Whatever. So they they're like, no, send out those guys. We want to fuck them. And Lot's like, you know, again, these guys are super gay. Suddenly, God's going to punish everybody for being gay. But they're not like fucking each other. Yeah? It's not like there's a whole bunch of dudes just dancing to techno music and there's like a speaker, but they're all just having this big orgy. Nope. They're only gay for these two guys that they somehow know is there. And so Lot, in all of his amazing nature, says, listen, guys, listen. You can't rape these two guys like that, but you came all this way. I don't want you to go home empty-handed. I mean, you've got, you know, you got your rape genes all up and running. How about I have the two virgin daughters that I'll offer you. You guys can do whatever you want with them. Just leave these two strangers that just showed up at my house an hour ago. Leave them alone. Thankfully, the rape mob was like, ew, we don't want your fucking teenage girls. That's gross. No, we want to fuck those two guys specifically. And Lot's like, oh no. And so they start coming at him all like zombies, like, ah. Lot backs up against the house, and suddenly a hand reaches out of the door and pulls him in the house. And as that happens, the angels make everyone outside the house blind. So now they're super gay for two guys that are inside the house, but they're blind and can't find the door handle that's on the door that's right in front of them. And then, it's later again. And the angels are like, man, that was really cool of you to do that. What you didn't know is that God was going to punish Sodom and Gomorrah and rain fire and brimstone down from the heavens because he loves you. On Sodom, because everybody's so gay around here. And I'm sure Lot was like, well, they weren't gay until you guys showed up, but whatever. And they're like, so because you tried to help us, we're telling you, and you need to get the fuck out of here. You need to go somewhere else. And Lot's like, oh, well, I'm so old. I can't go very far. Is it okay if I go to this little town that's not too far from here? And the angels are like, ugh, I don't know. Hang on a second. So they get out their phones and they call up God. And they're like, hey, God. Yeah, it's Tony. And God's like, motherfucking Tony. God damn it. This better not be another fucking wood. You better not be writing me any wood, Tony. We call you Timber Tony for a reason. Everything you do falls through. This better not be wood. And of course, if you've ever done the in-home sales, you know, like, he's getting chewed out on the phone, but he has to act like, oh yeah, no, he lives in a beautiful house. You should really see it. He has this collection of shit that you would really think, I know you're really into these things. And like, you got to find something in the house that you like and talk about it. It's sales 101. Right? But he's like, yeah, God, is it okay if, Lot, he says, look, I'm an old man. He's in his 90s. He says he can't go very far. There's another town a couple of clicks away. He's wondering if he can go to that town with his daughters and wife. And we said that they could bring their betrothed husbands as well. And God's like, motherfucker, I swear to God, Tony, if he doesn't go to that town, it's your ass. I'm sick of you writing wood. You can do it. You can give the okay, but if he doesn't show up to that town, it's your ass, Tony. Click. And Tony's like, okay, that's really great to hear, God. No, thank you so much. No, I will. Hey, you tell the wife I said have a great night as well. Okay. I see you. All right, bud. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. Because he's already been hung up on. And he's like, you won't believe it. He never does this. But God said, as long as you promise to go to that town, no funny business, then you can do it. But, like I said, you're allowed to, you, your daughters, your wife, and then their two husbands, two of those guys that were out there earlier, you can bring them with you. So again, it's the middle of the fucking night. Lot makes his way over to the guy's house, the betrothed husbands, who again, they're probably 10, 15 years older than the daughters. And he says, hey, you guys. And they're like, what's up, Lot? And he's like, hey, you remember how earlier today you were like specifically gay for these two guys that were at my house that you shouldn't have known were there, but you knew and you were gay for them? And then you went blind for a minute? Because I guess everybody can see now, who knows? And they're like, yeah, that was really fucking weird, wasn't it? And Lot was like, yeah, well, it was actually, those two guys were angels, and they're here to destroy the towns because we're all so gay. And the guys were like, what are you talking about? Nobody's gay. We were just suddenly gay for those guys because I guess God wanted us to be. I don't really know. I can't explain why a whole bunch of not gay men were suddenly gay for these two men, but that's what happened. So you must be out of your fucking mind, Lot. We were just blind and gay for a little while. There ain't nothing to that. And Lot was like, okay, I tried to warn you. So then, it's morning. And the angels are like, hey, what are you still doing here? You guys were supposed to leave already. And Lot was like, my rooster slept in. I didn't set my alarm clock well. I don't know. And so the angels, like, put their hand on his shoulder, and they transfer them from their house to outside the town. And they're like, all right, you got to go. Just make sure you don't look back, or you'll be turned into a pillar of salt. So they make on their way out, and I guess they can start to hear it behind them. And of course, because women are the bane of the Bible, women are just stupid, the wife looks back to see what's going on, even though she was told not to, and she's turned into a pillar of salt. I assume she must have been ahead of everybody so they could see that because if she was turned into a pillar of salt and they turned to look, then they would have been. So the mother gets turned into a pillar of salt, and they're just like, oh, well, and move on. Like, nobody cares. There's no anguish or anything over it. They're just like, come on, let's keep going. So they get to the town. It's now just Lot and his 2 daughters. Apparently the town is empty. I don't really understand this part, but they're in the town and Lot's like, I think those angels might have been lying. I don't trust them. So, weirdly enough, I happen to have a cave all the way over there at the top of that mountain, and I don't know, you can see it maybe. Well, there's a cave up there. It has all the food we'd ever need, and more importantly, a shit ton of alcohol, just in case you guys have any weird plans. So they Mario jumped their way up the mountain, because, climbing mountains is easy and shit. And now they're in their cave and they're looking out. And now I guess they can look at it and it's okay because they see that both Sodom and Gomorrah are just smoldering and they can see that there's no more people left. So this is where you have Lot's 2 daughters, the 2 virgin daughters. Again, they have to be 12 and 10, 12 and 11, maybe 13, but I doubt it because, again, if they were 13, they wouldn't still be virgins. They would have been married off to their betrothed because they were betrothed already. So they had to be, one of them had to be 12. I guess the other one, might have been, more likely was 11 or 10. And the betrothal can happen at any age, right? That's why the dowry, the double dowry payment, that's at any time. Because, sometimes the kids are picked at an even earlier age. But if they were both virgins, then unquestionably they were less than 13. If they were virgins and they were betrothed, right? Once they have their little 13-year-old bat mitzvah thing, they become adults as far as the cult is concerned, and they start popping out babies. They get married almost immediately, and they start popping out babies. So the 2 girls are in the back of the cave alone, other than, I guess, the little naked butt cherub that's writing down what they're saying. And the older one's like, hey, younger sister, you know how our father is, like, awesome? And younger sister's like, yeah, the way he wanted to give us to that rape mob earlier to save those 2 men that just showed up out of nowhere. Like, thankfully they didn't take us up because that would have been horrible to be raped by all those guys as teenage girls, as preteen girls with no experience. But hey, he's great. He's a great man. And the older one's like, yeah, well, it's really too bad he doesn't have a male child to carry on his name, his seed. He's just so great. And they're like, the younger daughter's like, yeah, I know, that's really too bad. And the older daughter's like, well, I haveth a planeth. How about tonighteth, we getteth him drunketh, so drunketh that he doesn't, because if we're the females, we know what's going on. It doesn't matter. We're girls. Who cares? If the man knows, it becomes a sin. It becomes awful. But as long as we get this 90-plus-year-old man so drunk that he doesn't recognize the fact he's having sex with his own daughters, it should be okay. And we'll get pregnant with boys. Of course, we'll know that. And they do it the next morning. The oldest one's like, huzzah, younger sister. It worked. I laid with our father last night, and now I am pregnant with a boy child. Like, how the fuck do you know that? How? Nobody knows they're pregnant the next day. Definitely don't know you're pregnant with a boy. But especially not some goofy virgin girl who's fucking 12. But she's like, all right, so tonight, younger sister, we're going to do the same thing with you. So apparently alcohol didn't affect people the way it does now. Because I know the last time I got drunk, which was like 10 years ago, in my 30s, I had a 3-day hangover from it. At least. It was awful. Wasn't worth it. Lot was so drunk that he didn't remember or know that he fucked his own daughter. And the next day he's just good to go, I guess. Fine, just, oh well. That night they do it again. They get him so drunk that he doesn't recognize what he's doing. The next day, the younger sister's like, huzzah, older sister. You know that I did it. You were there, but I too am now pregnant with a boy child. Thankfully, we don't have to keep doing this because he's old and gross. And the children of those guys, the one male child grows up to be the father of the Ammonites, the Ammonites, something like that. The other one grows up to be the father of the Moabites. Now, interesting sidebar here. If I start talking about the Nation of Islam, what do you picture? You picture the black Muslims, right? The militant Malcolm X, black Muslims. Urgh. You ever seen what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad looks like? He doesn't look like a black guy, does he? Kind of weird, right? Well, let's take it a step further. Because Elijah Muhammad was not the founder of the Nation of Islam. The founder of the Nation of Islam is a guy called, of many things. He's known by like 8 different names. Wallace Fard Muhammad is his main name, his main identity. He appears in the lexicon, in the social scene, supposedly. He appears in Detroit around 1930. And by 1934, he's disappeared. Nobody knows where he is. Funny enough, this is Netanyahu. We all know that, right? We know that piece of shit when we see him. Who do you think that is? That's Wallace Fard Muhammad. That guy is the founder of the Nation of Islam. That's the founder of the black Muslims. That is a monster right there. You are correct. And the thing about Wallace Fard Muhammad is at that time, there were like lots of these little black, unities, storefront preacher, and there were those Malcolm X type of guys. There was a lot of them. 34, that's a long time ago, right? Fard Muhammad pulled together a few of those groups to form the Nation of Islam. One of those groups taught that black people were the descendants of the Moabites. Hang on a second. Come on, Stinky. Don't forget the bank. Don't forget the bank. Thanks. He says that he taught that black people came from the Moabites. The inbred children, the inbred child of Lot and his daughter, both of which were friars, I guess produced a black kid. I actually had this said to me once. So I used to chase the Jehovah's Witnesses away. I'd follow them down the street talking a bunch of shit. And I look back on it and I'm kind of embarrassed by it. Like, wasn't my finest moment, wasn't my finest hour, but I was just having fun, I guess. It drives me crazy. Their whole thing drives me crazy. And so I've been on the list of people who don't want to hear the good news. Yet when they would come to the neighborhood, I would see them and I would go outside and, whatever. And then one year I decided, let's give it a shot. Let's try talking to them. And so it was a man in his 40s who was clearly gay. Clearly this man was gay. A younger kid, these were all black people. The kid was like 20 or 21 or something, and he was really, really dark skinned. And then there was a couple of women, older women with them. And they came out, and I was like, hey, I know I'm on the list of people who don't want to hear the good news, but I've had a lot go on in my life lately, and I'd really just like to talk to you guys. I have a card table set up out front. I have some chairs. I have some bottled waters. Will you guys just talk with me? And they were like, okay. I mean, I guess, we get doors slammed in our faces all day, every day. So I guess if you promise you're not going to be mean. And I was like, I promise I'll be good. Like, I'm not going to be mean to you at all. They're like, all right, well, let us just finish knocking the rest of these houses and we'll come back. So I thought they'd bail, but they actually came back. Well, two of them. The gay dude and the younger kid as like his muscle. And so we sat down and we talked. And the gay dude kept saying, you have no idea. I used to live a life so full of sin. And now and I found Jehovah. And apparently, like 10, 12 years ago, he met this woman who was clearly a lesbian. Like, you could tell that they were each other's beard. And their little, like, 12-year-old boy was with the woman when she came up later on. They were like, we got to go. And the kid was clearly gay. Like, it was just so sad to see it because you knew, like, that they're not happy. They pretend to be. They're probably doing shit behind closed doors and sneaking out. And they're going to make this kid feel like a piece of shit for being who he is. And, like, it's really sad. But we talked for like 2 hours, and surprisingly, when I asked them about, so you guys believe in deep space and stuff, right? They were like, oh, well, I was like, what about the firmament? They were like, what's the firmament? And I was just like, you guys are going door to door to push something, and you don't even know what the very first thing God does after turning on the light is? God turns on the light first. He doesn't make the sun and the moon until the 4th day, so I don't know how we have 4 days, but that light that he turns on is not the sun. It's a separate light. And the first thing he does is builds the firmament to separate the waters of heaven from the earth down below. And you don't fucking know that word? The young guy looked it up and he was like, oh, wow, firmament appears like 15 times or so, 17 times in the Bible. Like, yeah, I didn't make the word up. But I didn't know the Wallace Fard Muhammad part yet. And so I was asking him about, so you believe in then Noah, right? The Noah's Ark story, which is one of the most ridiculous stories in the Bible. But the part that's so ridiculous is like normally people focus on how ridiculous the premise is, the beginning. All the emperor penguin swimming up from Antarctica and then waddling its fucking giant penguin ass to wherever it needs to go to meet up on the boat. Like all these, we all think about how ridiculous that is. What did the animals eat? The animals ate manna too now. Is that what you're saying? The lions who were surrounded by food were just like, I don't want any of this. Just give me that sticky manna substance. And, they were on the ship for 40 days. Isn't it another 40 days, I think? I don't fucking know that one as well. But eventually, Noah, and again, Noah's a Jew, don't get it twisted, sends out a dove. The dove, comes back. He's like, oh, well, I guess we should wait. They wait another little bit. He sends the dove out. This time the dove comes back with a branch or something. And he's like, oh shit, it's getting better. They wait a little bit more. He sends the dove out and it doesn't come back. And because the dove doesn't come back, he's like, all right, cool. Now we know we can leave. And so they open the doors, and this is where, to me, it gets even more ridiculous. Because now you have to have everything that's been cooped up in this ship. The giraffes, the hippos, the American grizzly bear that has to then swim its ass all across the ocean and shit. Like, it's all just so stupid. But to think about everything going back, thinking about like the lions going back to the Serengeti, and then the antelopes and all of the other things that they eat. Well, all of their prey would have to have a few generations of no lion killings before there could be enough of them to allow lions to kill them and still, you know, perpetuate the circle of life. So were the lions just sitting there on Pride Rock eating manna for a few generations while the antelope repopulated and all these, like, this part's always just so confusing to me. What did all the prey animals do, or all the predator animals do while the prey repopulated? How long did that take? And even more so, basically everybody's dead, right? Except for this one Jewish family. Noah, his wife, his daughters, or his son, is it 2 or 3 sons, and their wives? I think it's 2 sons. So all these people just start fucking each other in order to repopulate? And what? They happen to have, you know, 2 black ones, a black boy and a black girl, that they then put on a little raft and just was like, all right, we're going to send you to this place where we don't know it exists, but hey, go repopulate Africa. Like, do you just understand? Like, can you begin to wrap your head around how fucking stupid that is? And Noah's Ark is not supposed to be allegory. It's not supposed to be some analogy for something. Noah's Ark is supposed to be taken as a real fucking story. Right? All of you dumbass Christians, you are required to believe that shit word for word. The Bible is not to be interpreted like somebody said it yesterday on the feed. You know, for thousands of years, the Bible was word for word. You take it for its word. Anything else is considered blasphemy. It's in the last 100 years that people have been like, oh wait, no, you know, a lot of it's up for interpretation. And it's like, which parts? How do you decide which parts are meant for interpretation and which parts are meant for word? Who decides that? How do we know the interpretation is the right one? Whose interpretation is the right one? But when I asked this guy about the Noah's Ark, you know, what do you think? Like, so you're saying that Eskimos and Native Americans and Australian Aborigines and black people from Africa, they all are the descendants of this one Jewish family fucking each other? And this black man's response to me was, well, you know what they say happens when family members procreate. And my jaw hit the floor and I was like, are you serious? Are you seriously saying to me that you think black people are the results of Jewish inbreeding and some sort of, you know, retardation or malfunction of the genes? You, a black person, is going to say that's what it is? Like, it's just shocking how stupid people are. But at the same time, you really do have to be stupid to be a Christian, to be a Muslim. You know, I don't talk about Islam nearly as much because Islam isn't that important to me. It doesn't affect my everyday life. I'm not in a region where Islam is the main gig. The main gig here is Christianity controlled by Judaism in this Western style world we live in. But Muslims are just as awful. I mean, think about, like, how can you tell a population to not rape children when your main dude, Muhammad, was in his 50s when his favorite wife, Alicia, I think it's Alicia. I gotta stop saying this. I gotta figure this out. No. Muhammad's favorite wife. Aisha, sorry, Aisha. 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 Sorry. Aisha was his favorite wife. She was 6 years old when she started to be groomed to his liking, and 9 years old when they consummated the marriage. His favorite wife was the 9-year-old he was having sex with in his 50s. That's Muhammad. Look, somebody's flying the pedophile flag, the blue and white pedo flag. We know they're proud of their pedophilia. Without pedophilia, their thing wouldn't exist. Okay, slavery, isn't that all history? It's all a narrative. It's all a narrative that you're told. Doesn't mean it's real. At the end of the day, again, this is where the Tartaria part comes in. This is why it's such an important piece. You can go to any downtown in the United States, shit, just about anywhere in the world, and you're going to see a whole bunch of buildings and shit that don't make any sense. Skyscrapers, that, you know, the Empire State Building was built in just under 400 days in 1931. The Pentagon is actually the craziest one in the world to me, and it's actually interesting because isn't it strange that My Lunch Break, that Lucius Aurelian, that Old World Secrets, that all of these Tartaria pages, Mind Unveiled, that none of them focus on easily the craziest building in the United States, if not the world? None of them focus on the Pentagon, you know, where the CIA and FBI operate out of, coincidentally. None of the feds who are controlling the narrative, the Tartaria narrative, focus on the absolute most insane of all buildings. The Pentagon, from the base of one of the sides to one of the tips, is as big as, from the base to the tip, is as tall as the Empire State Building. And you have that in multiple, you know, in a big round thing. Just think about how insane this is. The Pentagon is 7 total stories, 5 above ground and 2 below ground. 2. And that's just what they tell us. Along with all the intersecting tunnels and shits that hit those basements. The Pentagon, the site for the Pentagon was selected on September 2nd. And 9 days later, on September 11th, 1941, they signed the final paperwork and broke ground on the same day. Because the United States was in a war, and we weren't actually. War wasn't imminent yet. It wasn't like, you know, we were in this desperate need. But they apparently they had 15,000 workers working around the clock. How do you feed all those 15,000? This is 1941. September 11th, 1941, meaning the attacks were on the 60th anniversary, not the 59th, not the 61st, the 60th anniversary of the construction beginning on the Pentagon is when the attacks happened. And they built that entire complex by January, like mid-January of 1943, over 2 winters, most of it was wintertime, and in roughly 15 months or so, 16 if you include all of the planning, they selected the site 9 days before breaking ground. And were able to get all the permits and everything and all the design, all this. The Pentagon has, like I say, 2 basements, meaning the first basement, which, again, you would rightfully assume has walls that are 5 foot thick, 6 foot, 10 foot thick, with reinforced steel inside them. I mean, wouldn't you want that so nobody can get to your special building? And it's not going to be normal walls. How do you pour the second basement? Right? Don't you think it's going to take some time for that first basement to dry? Let alone dig it. To dig the entire, it was a swamp area too. To pump, drain, and then dig out this swamp. You'd think that might take, several months in itself. Yet, that's not how it worked. They broke ground on the same day that they signed the final papers. So you have the first basement. Somehow it's dried. Then they have to pour the second basement on top of that. Before you can build the rest of the big concrete fortress on top of it, or whatever it's made out of. We just think it's made out of concrete. Before you can pour the rest, the second basement, or the first basement, however you want to put it, that would have to dry. And then the Pentagon has each one of those rings is 5 stories tall. They said they built it in sections. Each, flat part was built. There's no construction photos of any of it. None. You can't find them. I've tried. The few construction photos that exist are like, this is a wall to the Pentagon. And you'd be like, oh, I guess if you say so. Like, how would I know? Nobody from far away took pictures of it in different stages, none of it. Nope. Took roughly 15 months, 16 months to complete it. It took them just over a year to repair the damage from the 9/11 attacks. One little section was damaged. One part of one section was damaged. And it took them over a year to fix it. In the 2000s, I'm supposed to believe that in 1941 through 43, at 42, January of 43 doesn't really count much, that they were able to throw that whole building up, no problem. Skibbity. Right? If you're gonna sit here, like, obviously there's gonna be the trolls, right? But if you're gonna sit here and pretend like the Pentagon, what I just explained to you, makes sense, all you're doing is showing that you're just gonna argue anything that's said. Because you have a job to do, because you're act.il, as we talked about earlier. Nobody in their right mind hears that shit and goes, no, that makes total sense. Totally. We've never built another building even close to the Pentagon. Why? Seems like that shit works out pretty well. But again, none of the Tartaria people ever talk about it. Why do you think that is? Since the 1940s, the Pentagon has went through multiple restructurings. No, it hasn't. No. It was after, I think it was 1990 was when they did the first real renovations of it. And it took them like 12 years to complete the renovations. It took them forever. It took them at least 8 years, but I think it's longer than that, to renovate the building. But they could build it in less than 2 years. That's going from nothing, from swampland to the completed Pentagon in 16 months. Do you understand how insulting that is? It's insulting. It's as insulting as them pretending like there's no camera footage clearly showing what happened on September 11th. When within a half hour of the attacks, FBI were at all the different locations, all the different gas stations and banks and everywhere around there that had a security camera that could have caught any aspect. Like, even the people working there didn't know they had a camera that could have seen it. And yet all of those tapes were confiscated. Well over 100 tapes. And all we've been shown is a couple of things. One, supposedly showing a plane from a gas station, like going up, and then, you know, you don't see much. You just see it kind of go up and then loop, but you don't really see anything. And then the other one is that toll gate footage that they say the plane was going so fast that it hit in between frames being taken. But more than anything, the security footage had the wrong date at the bottom. Did you bring up cleaner? It had the wrong fucking... It's the security footage from the #1 military base in the world. And they don't have the date on it, correct? You think that's believable? Even with you posting scripture, that's why it took you so long to post. What? What the fuck are you talking to? Imagine having your brain act like this guy's. Right. Wouldn't want to think about things too much and know history. No, I should know all about pop culture bullshit, right? I should be like, sports team! Bread and circus! Look at these fucking comments, man. There's a couple of people trying to sound smart here, but they're dealing with stupidity. And if you're dealing with stupidity, the other comments, intelligence is never going to come out. They don't have the ability. They're not going to say something intelligent and make you go, oh shit, I never thought about it like that. They don't have that ability. You can prove them wrong over and over again, and they're just going to jump topics or won't even address what you're saying. Because they can't. Like I say, Tartaria is such a huge part of this because it if anything, it just shows you that we're being lied to. And when you understand that the history that we have doesn't talk about a reset, doesn't tell you anything about it, has eliminated Tartaria from the history books. Like, Tartaria itself is not a theory. It's a worldwide sort of society that very high class, high ranking, we're very capable. But that part's been eliminated. Like, they just don't tell us that. And if they don't tell us this shit, what else aren't they telling us? Like, this is all, you know, if you accept the idea that they're lying about Tartaria at the very least, and you understand that resets happen, and you understand things like orphan trains, or at least you have a concept of it. You don't understand it because you can't. But you know that there's this part of history that's just been omitted. This is when you have to sort of, you know, you combine that. You look at it, you say, okay, so why would I believe anything they have to say? Especially not shit that supposedly happened 2,000 years ago. Am I supposed to believe that somehow Christianity survived the multiple resets and all of that shit? It's the truth. God and Jesus, the Jewish fairy tale. Like, when do you sort of wake up to that shit? What's your point about building the Pentagon? What's your theory? What's the point? The point is, what the fuck? Use your common sense. Do you think it's possible to build the Pentagon in 15, 16 months, start to finish? There's a lot of points being made. There's the Tartaria point. There's the lying point. There's the truthers. The people that make these videos. This one channel I know of is called like Old World Secrets or some shit like that. And Old World Secrets puts out at least a half-hour long video every single day. And it's not a live feed where they're just sort of talking. They pick a topic. They have all of these pictures. They have a script that's written. They record the script. They write the script. They record it. Then they mix they time it all out with the music, when the speech, when the spoken part starts, when it takes breaks and all that to fit with the pictures that they're showing you. It looks as professional as possible, and it's done every single day. Do you understand how difficult that would be? Regular people to do that shit? And it's not like they even have a couple of 100,000 subscribers, so they're getting paid to do it. This is a smaller channel. Their numbers, my numbers beat their numbers at certain points. And yet every day they're dropping this new, really, really great, super informative, super contradictory to the narrative, super distractionary video. Right? And as someone who creates content, I can tell you that'd be very difficult. Right, just writing the script every day, then recording it, then mixing it, finding all the pictures and all of that shit. Like, that would be a pretty big undertaking. You would need quite a team to be able to pull that off every day. So you have to ask yourself, who's putting out all of these Tartaria videos, especially since none of them ever focus on the Pentagon, when the Pentagon is the #1 fucking building. You can talk about all the different state capitals, and yeah, that shit's crazy, but they all look alike. There's multiple of that same building. The World's Fairs, that shit is incredible. Talk about a hidden part of our history, and very important that we know it. But if we're only getting our narrative from the system that's lying to us, then you already know they're leaving a bunch out, and that's the important shit. It's like with Trump. Trump's released the files that supposedly pertain to before 1990 and after 2002. But there's that one little window of files that he just won't release, even though it would completely absolve him, right? Because he's innocent and he's not hiding anything and he's not protecting anyone, but he just won't release this one little piece of the file. Like, come on now. You can't be that stupid. Woke up and fell back asleep. Must be nice. Enjoy that. Mohammed. So I would assume you're a Muslim, right? Tisk, tisk, tisk. Tisk, tisk, tisk. I'm getting you to teach the Bible in front of everyone here. You're getting someone to teach the Bible. What are you talking about? The Bible is dumb. The Bible is a Jewish fairy tale. If there's any truth to it, let us know. You know, I'd love to hear about one of these prophecies that supposedly came true. And you can't bring up Israel because it's not accurate. Israel isn't supposed to exist until after the Messiah shows up. Which is another weird little thing. In that, you know, how do we know their Messiah didn't show up? That's where all their shit came from. They just lie about it. The one thing they all believe that you don't hear about is that when the Messiah shows, they all get 2,800 Goyim slaves, 2,800 Gentile slaves. Each one gets 2,800 Gentile slaves. And you know that physically, these inbred cowards can't control 2,800 people each. So how does that actually work? Well, it's figurative. It's not literal. But in order for each one of them to live the Israeli utopia that they are supposed to live, which will bring us back to the first Aliyah, it's they all, you know, for them to live that privileged, you know, on top of the pile, the best of everything, travel all around the world, live in a fucking a Section 8 mansion. Lakewood is full of a bunch of Section 8 houses that are $1 million each. $500,000, $800,000 houses. If you look at the supposed videos of the shit that when Iran missiles get through and destroy neighborhoods, look at the fucking mansion compounds they live in. Each one of their houses looks like a giant apartment building, but a decadent one. That's part of the Semitism, policy and predisposition favorable to them.
Stop this song and look up Team Jorge. It's more important than what shows. They're rotten. More than what you know about yourself and what
You're not showing me anything I don't already know. Whoa, who says I'm talking? I don't even know who you're talking to. I don't really care.
control your life. They know every slice of each pie you stick your knife in and all.
Sorry, I forgot what I was talking about. We're gonna go back to the first Aliyah though.
Showing your best friend the sickness and the lie tonight. Who you might offend. They know who you pretend to be in front of everyone. They know they
So we were talking about the first Aliyah and how this is an invasion, right? And it's based on this idea of the utopia. Oh yeah, the 2,800 slaves. So in order for each one of them to live a utopia, for them to live in a mansion, for them to not have to pay for groceries, for them to not have to pay for schooling and health care and house payments and all that, it takes 2,800 of us doing our thing. Whether it's working, whether cooking food, fixing cars, you know, being the wife who stays at home and takes care of the husband who is the electric line worker to provide electricity. Like, it takes 2,800 of us in concert to provide each one of them their lives. That's what they meant by 2,800 slaves each. It's a figurative thing. And so again, at the beginning of the period, the friar population in Ottoman Palestine was around 26,000. Over the course of the first Aliyah, many immigrants arrived from different countries in Europe, Africa, Asia, and by the end of this period, the friar population in Ottoman Palestine had grown to approximately 55,000. It's an invasion. This is so interesting. Listen to this. The first use of the term, or the use of the term first Aliyah, is controversial because there had been a previous wave of immigration to Ottoman Syria starting in the mid 19th century between 1840 and 1880. The friar population in Ottoman Syria rose from 9,000 to 23,000. Again, where are they just sort of coming from? Right? Like it's nuts to think that they're just immigrating to a new place that doesn't want them. Not only are they surviving, but they're thriving. Just kind of a strange bunch of shit here. So trust me, it's gonna get really good here in a minute. However, nearly all of the friars from Eastern Europe before the first Aliyah, listen to this. This is one of the craziest parts. Nearly all the friars from Eastern Europe before the first Aliyah came from traditional friar families who were inspired by traditional ideas of the holiness of the land, combined with practical economic considerations, rather than by modern Zionist ideology. Thus, the first Aliyah represents the beginning of organized Zionism in the land of Israel. How do you just say that they came from traditional family farming, blah, 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 that weren't inspired by Zionist activities, but it also represents the beginning of organized Zionism? That don't make no sense. That's just dumb fucking nonsense. And you would have to be a dumb fucking Goyim to understand that, to hear that and think that's okay. The migration to Ottoman Palestine at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century took place during a period of mass global immigration, leaving from Eastern Europe when the West to the Western world. Again, it's really this fits in with that repopulation time frame. Suddenly, there are 3 million friars who are just spreading all over the world because where they are, they've crashed the economy. They've caused a bunch of turmoil. Like, again, they always talk about how they're fleeing persecution. They're fleeing from pogroms. They're fleeing people not liking them. But nobody ever says, well, why? What were they doing to earn that position? And you can see it if you pay attention. Watch, I'll show you. And remember, this is what they want us to know. This isn't my shit. From the early 19th century until World War II, approximately 65 million people, including around 4.5 million friars, migrated to countries in Central and Western Europe and the Americas, including North and South America, Australia, and South Africa. South Africa, you know, they did good things in South Africa, didn't they? But again, where does 4.5 million friars just sort of come from? Just think about that. You don't just have people suddenly appear out of nowhere. It's not like the conditions of life got so much better for everyone. We're talking about the 1830s and shit. What advancements do you think were making life so much more conducive to having lots and lots of kids in a very short time frame?
People are putting up sex offender in the area posters with Trump on them.
Awesome.
You watching these?
He is somewhat educational. Check out Metzitzia Buffet. Somewhat. What part am I getting wrong there, doof? Karen, what's going on? Oh, Karen, I'm saying the same dumb things over and over again. You might not want to watch because I've said these things before. The majority of friar emigrants went from Western Europe, Eastern Europe, to the United States, with additional destinations in North and South America, Western Europe, Australia, and South Africa. So suddenly, the European friar population explodes. Actually, the European population explodes. 65 million people, including 4.5 million friars. Where the fuck do all those people just come from? I mean, seriously, do you not understand how ridiculous that is? You don't just have 65 million people just sort of appear out of nowhere. That's not how things work. A small minority of friar immigrants moved to Palestine during the early waves of migration, and some of them settled there, always downplaying it, always. That's why using Wikipedia is so powerful. Because as bad as it makes them sound, you always have to remember this is what they want you to know. Imagine all the shit that's getting left out. They sound awful with this whitewashed, as good as it can be while still telling you the story narrative. This shit's crazy. Among the reasons for mass migration from Eastern Europe were economic hardships resulting from rapid population growth. That doesn't make any sense. But see, the thing that, none of it makes sense. There's a picture, an engraving from 1621 of Old London Bridge. Okay, so this, 1616. An engraving by Claes Vischer showing Old London Bridge in 1616 with what is now Southwark Cathedral in the foreground. The spiked heads of executed criminals can be seen above the Southwark gates. So this is what London Bridge looked like in 1616. These are giant houses, apartment buildings. Like, see the heads on the spikes right above the archway there that looks just like the Arch de Triomphe or whatever the fuck it's called. So you could see just how big these fucking buildings were. On how did they build that? And then look at the bigger picture. Look at, like, even back here you see these huge skyscrapers way in the background. You see all these towers and shit. Look at that. Look, if you go look at how big that church is today, of course, the top part's cut off. All the etheric, energy gathering sources are cut off. You only see, like, that much of it today. But you know that this building is huge. So look at all this. How many people do you think inhabit this area? Look at how many stories these buildings are. These are like 8-story buildings. All across the water. These are huge. We don't have anything like that even close today. And you can see there are other pictures of it. Apparently this was a time when everything froze over and you can see everybody's just out having a good time. Old London Bridge in the background with buildings on it. Here's another picture of with buildings on it. It won't let me turn it sideways, but you can see here. Let me zoom in. Yeah, just these giant fucking houses on Old London Bridge like this. Oh, fucked up. Here's London Bridge is burning down. My fair lady. See, and now look at all the people out there on boats watching it like it was a destruction event and they knew it was happening. All these boats were what's the word? Chartered to be able to watch that shit. Here's another picture of it. Look at the background. Look how many houses exist. So who was feeding all of these people? Where were all of these people getting their food from? Look at how big these fucking houses are. This is London Bridge. This is over the water. Look at this shit. We were doing this in pre-1616. I mean, in the 1616 engraving, everything looks old. Of course, this is the shield that they have with the unicorn on it. And the unicorn has a chain around its neck. And it's got like a plug it's attached to, whereas the lion has no chain. And there's another lion. You know, they just picked all this shit because it's pretty, right? Not because it all has significance. The tongue sticking out, all that. A fucking unicorn. Why would they pick a fucking unicorn? Here's some more. London Bridge. This must be after the houses were removed. Right? This is later because there's no houses on top. Here we go again. Look at the foundations and shit. How did they build that? All those perfect archways, all made of fucking forever stone. Unicorn represents Scotland. Yeah, but why? I mean, it's just weird. Here's the modern day equivalent. Talk about, man, we sure have gotten advanced. That's so much more advanced, isn't it? Look, they can drive across it now. Oh, look how nice that looks. Just a nice little thing. Just such improvements. Funny thing is, though, you can still see that there's some of those Tartarian buildings that were there in the 1616 engraving are there in the 2000 in the modern day picture. That building right there in the middle is in the 1616 engraving. So here, take a look. See that building, memorize its features. Okay. Damn, that one doesn't show it. It's cut off just before you can see it. See, look on this side. Well, let's see. I'm sure there's one that I can see it in. Here's one where it's... Oh, Jesus. Look at the background of this. Look at that building way in the background. Somebody took the time to paint that. Look at the skyscrapers in this picture. With, again, all the etherical collection devices up top. And then you got these people just sort of hanging out, looking all confused. What are we doing here? Oh, don't worry. Let's go for a little walk in our clothing that would have taken forever to wear. And, of course, it's always freezing fucking cold in these pictures. Can you imagine how ridiculous if it was like 80, 90 degrees and you had on that much clothing? You'd fucking die. Look, everybody's just like, hey, we're all just hanging out. It's all so stupid. Here's, I'm assuming that building just looks a little different, but I mean, even look at the retaining walls. How did they build the retaining walls around London Bridge? And of course, that's London Bridge with all the different archways. We're like, nah, we're going to only use a couple of archways. They were like, we're going to make it as more difficult and as beautiful as possible. Look at that shit.
Jesus.
It's fucking crazy, man. It's just crazy. I don't even know why I was doing that, but it just shows you that they're just lying about our history. They're lying about all of it. It's that simple. And to believe this shit, I'm reading this stuff not because I believe it, because I want you to know what they want you to know. Among the reasons for mass migration from Eastern Europe was economic hardships resulting from rapid population growth. The friar community of the Pale of Settlement in Western Russia, Galicia, I don't know, Romania, and in particular, suffered from economic difficulties. Most of the friar immigrants, who mainly migrated to America, were families seeking to escape persecution and aiming to improve their personal and economic security. Not like everybody else, savages. Anti-Semitic persecution, both by authorities and by the local population in Eastern Europe, primarily in the Russian Empire, intensified the friar migration, so that when they failed a couple of years later, and they were all hungered, they were starving and full of disease, and they went back to their countries of origin, countries of origin just took them back. That is weird. But this is the narrative. This is how they tell us it is. Here, give me that. You take that. Sorry. Give me a second here. Yeah. There we go.
Where are the Epstein tapes? The churches molested another child. But where are the Epstein tapes? They have the Goy in a state of denial. But where are the friggin' Epstein tapes?
Persecution, primarily in the Russian Empire. Prominent anti-Semitic incidents in this context included the Kiev pogrom in 1881, the May laws in 1882, and the expulsion of Moscow's friars in 1890. This migration to Ottoman Palestine was influenced by extensive Zionist activity in Eastern Europe, which inspired a sense of historical and religious connection between the friar people and the ancient land, despite its difficult political and economic environment compared with to other migration destinations. I mean, do you not hear what's being said? It wasn't friendly for them. It didn't make sense for them. They never felt this way beforehand. You know, for the 1800 plus years that they supposedly existed in the world, they never felt any sort of connection to Palestine or anything like that. It wasn't until auto emancipation that they suddenly were like, hey, we need to take over Israel, our ancient historic land that's so important and blah, blah, blah. If it was so important, why did it take 1800 years to fucking do? After widespread pogroms in the Russian Empire, known as the Kiev pogrom in 1881, the pamphlet Auto Emancipation, remember from earlier, by Leon Pinsker, was published anonymously, and remember, it was attributed to him later in life, I think even after his death. And the organization Hibbet Zion, Lovers of Zion, was established. Established for all you stupid asses. Its members opened branches in many cities and towns, leading to a national awakening among part of the friar population in the Pale of Settlement areas, extending beyond the borders. I mean, again, if they're so persecuted, how are they opening up chapters of the organization all over the country? Does any of it make sense? The rise in anti-Semitism made the Zionist movement popular. replacing the attitudes of integration into European societies. So again, the people controlling the narrative are publishing all of these stories about how they are being so persecuted everywhere. There's so much persecution. There's so much anti-Semitism everywhere. We need to unify. We need to unify and then do the same thing to another group of people so we can take their land.
They just fucked everyone. The room had so many elephants that their skeletons were all stunned and like melanin.
Do you understand how fucking weird that is? The room has so many elephants that the skeletons were stunned. Oh, come on. Come on, you know how brilliant that shit is? The rise in anti-Semitism made the Zionist movement popular, replacing ideas of integration and working together. On January 11th, 1882, the first Lovers of Zion Congress, the Forsani Zionist Conference, was held. Its participants represented around 70,000 activists, which accounted for 1/3 of the Romanian friars at the time. How how do you organize something that 70,000 people attend? I mean, there's no communication devices other than pigeons. They must have had a huge pigeon fucking coop, man.
Unfortunately for them, the Goy asked too many questions.
Everybody comes and they all meet at the buildings. Like, I've looked up this shit before. The first Zionist Congress in 1884 or 1894. Like, these things are real. And you have to ask yourself, the first Zionist Congress in 1894 was held in Switzerland and had over 200 plus delegates show up from all around the world. How did everybody from get to Switzerland? How did they know? Even if you're sending out correspondence through the mail system of the time, I mean, you would have to send it out months in advance. It would take a month for the thing to get there, another month for them to get it back to you. Hey, can you come to our party? Yeah, when is it? You know? They have to rent the hall. They have to. What about all the people, the 200 or so plus, and all their families that now descend on Switzerland? How do they feed everybody? Suddenly, Switzerland has enough food to accommodate all these new people, and it's all kosher, of course, which is something everybody should be doing. Everybody should be on a kosher diet. Kosher is not about being blessed. It's about not eating tumors and cancers and shit. Moishe Halvi Goldran, a leader and visionary, called the convention the Union for Agricultural Settlement. The Union for Agricultural Settlement. Because the people of Palestine just didn't have enough agriculture to take care of themselves. They needed these lazy pieces of shit to come in there. And you'll hear what I mean. And presented a bold plan to organize group emigration to Palestine and Syria and establish farming communities there. Oh, really? There, the Central Committee for Settling the Land of Israel and Syria was established, right? So that thing probably has morphed into something else by now. The Jewish Agency, the Zionist Federation Settlement. Here's your land. Here's your mansion. Here's your credit card. Here's your paycheck number. You know, like it's a good time for you if you want to go be a piece of shit. Nowadays they have this. Back then it was just getting started, so you're going to hear what happened. It was first organized it was the first organization dealing with organized immigrant groups to the land of Israel. Which is weird because Israel didn't exist. Isn't that strange? Settling the land of Israel and Syria. We're talking about something from 1882? From the 1880s? Israel didn't exist until 1948. Right? This sounds like a huge plan. And the funny thing is, all of us were told that the reason Palestine exists, or the reason why Israel exists, is because of World War II and the Holocaust and the poor friars, and they deserve a land of their own. So the Palestinians had to suffer for it. But like, you didn't know that Israel was being established before World War II? Because if you do, then the idea of World War II, especially the details that get left out, like the Havara Agreement, the transfer agreement, it starts destroying the narrative that they want you to believe, that they're the most persecuted. They were Holocaust and 6 million, and all of that shit starts really falling apart when you start learning about things like the Havara Agreement. But Guy, what's the Havara Agreement? The Havara Agreement, or Transfer Agreement, was an agreement between Nazi Germany and Zionist organizations. How many times did you hear about the Zionist organizations when you were in school again, sweetheart?
Never.
Never? You heard about the Nazis, though, right?
Way too much.
Like Nazi Germany and like the Holocaust and the persecution. But you never, not once, heard about Zionist organizations? Signed on August 25th, 1933. Do you think if you would have heard this might have changed your opinion a little bit?
Slightly.
The agreement was finalized after 3 months of talks by the... You absolutely heard about the Zionist Federation of Germany, though, right?
Never.
The Zionist Federation of Germany, the Anglo-Palestine Bank under the directive of the Jewish Agency. You heard about the Jewish Agency, right?
No.
No. And the economic authorities of Nazi Germany. You heard about the economic authorities of Nazi Germany, though, right?
No.
It was a major factor in making possible the migration of approximately 60,000 German friars to Palestine between 1933 and 39. The agreement enabled friars fleeing persecution. If they were fleeing persecution, why was Germany paying for them to leave? That doesn't sound like persecution to me. Fleeing persecution under the new Nazi regime, and by the way, Hitler had already been put in place, to transfer some portion of their assets to British Mandatory Palestine. Immigrants sold their assets in Germany to pay for essential goods manufactured in Germany to be shipped to Mandatory Palestine. That sounds like money laundering. Doesn't that sound a little bit like money laundering? The agreement was controversial and was criticized by revisionist Zionist leaders and by some non-Zionist friars, as well as by members of both the Nazi Party and the German public. So why did they do it? If it was so... I bet the Palestinians weren't too happy about it either. 60,000. Around 10,000 per year. They've been doing 10,000 per year since the 1880s. That's what you figure out. It's an invasion of about 10,000 people per year on the mid-range. Sometimes it might be a little lower. It's the lower mid-range, actually, because sometimes it's way more. For German friars, the agreement offered a way to leave an increasingly hostile environment. For the Yeshuv, the friar community in Palestine, it offered access to both immigrant labor and economic support. Immigrant labor? What's that mean? Immigrant labor and economic support. For the German authorities, it facilitated the immigration of friars while breaking the anti-Nazi boycott of 1933, which had mass support among European and American friars and was thought by the state to be a potential threat to the economy. So that's them moving friars, paying for friars $60,000 just in Germany to go start to continue the invasion of Palestine. Interestingly, in 41, the supposed Holocaust, the killing part, the 6 million part, happened between 1941 and 1945. That's four years. 6 million in 4 years. So, 6 million divided by 4, that's 1.5 million per year. 1.5 million divided by 365, that's 4,109, well, 4,110, 9.5, sorry. So I'm going to round up. That's 4,110 people per day. Per day. Divided by 24. That's 171 people per hour. Divided by 60. That's 3 people every minute, 2.85. 3 people every minute for 4 years. Do you believe that's possible? Trust me, we're just getting to the good part. I know you want to leave, but we're getting to the good part. There, the Central Committee for Settling the Land of Israel and Syria was established. Nope, this is just a repeat. It was the first organization dealing with immigrant groups. The committee organized expeditions from Galate on the Danube to the land of Israel, bringing immigrants from friar communities in Romania. Through the committee's activities, about 600 people out of approximately 1,000 early immigrants settled in 9 moshava, including, who cares? In 1883, the committee ran into financial difficulties and transferred the assets of one of those places, the Zechron Yaakov. You ready for it? To Baron Rothschild. I just can't. It's like I almost don't want to read it because I know people are conspiracy. Like, that's what you would think. If I was going to actually write this out and make it up, I wouldn't use Rothschild because it would be too obvious. It would be just like, come on, man. That's the easy one. Yeah, the Rothschilds. Israel exists because of the Rothschilds. It's what it is. And this is in 1883. This is 2 years later. They barely made it 2 years before they needed help.
Did you feel any shaking this morning?
No.
We had earthquakes this morning here.
That's crazy.
3 small tremors.
Understand that again, the auto emancipation pamphlet, it doesn't say when it was. It was 1882. It doesn't say exactly what month. And then the first Aliyah is from 1881. We don't know if it's from January of 1881. But 1883 is 2 years later. We're talking about 2 fucking years, guys. After 2 years, they were starving. They were diseased and starving after just 2 years of supposedly being on their own because, again, these people came here under the guise that this was their Zionism. This was their utopia. They were going to get there and everything was going to be like it is today. It just wasn't. Now explain who owned the schooling in America. Well, who owned the school book publishing was Maxwell, Robert Maxwell, Jizzy's dad. It's not, again, it's like you would think someone's lying when they say that. You're telling me the most notorious pedophile distraction that's ever been existed, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, her dad, who was Epstein version 1.0, literally like to the T, agent, crazy background, multiple identities, never lived in Israel. When he died, mysteriously died. Again, nobody knows that he actually died. That's just the narrative you're given. Nobody can prove, like, there's no proof. The character of Robert Maxwell was given the highest ranking Israeli military funeral you can get. 6 different prime ministers showed up to his funeral. And one of the prime ministers spoke and said, it cannot be stated here just how much this man has done for Israel, or everything that this man has done for Israel. If not, using his plane, using his network to sneak in military plane parts for Israel in '67, they would have lost. Israel wouldn't exist without Robert Maxwell. Just like Israel wouldn't exist without Baron Rothschild. But here, let's keep going here. Many of the immigrants, look at how they just add this little statement at the end. Many of the immigrants were simply seeking what any other immigrants were seeking, a better life away from pogroms. So they go and they fucking take over somebody else's shit. It's not like they went to a place where nobody lived. The first Aliyah occurred from 1881 to 1903 and did not go as planned, as Zionists ran out of funds. The Rothschild organization helped the Zionist movement by funding Zionists and by purchasing large settlements and by creating new settlements. How does anybody fail if the most powerful family in the world buys up all the land and it says funding Zionists, meaning gave them money? Of course they're going to survive. Of course they're going to thrive. They're going to use that money like they're doing it here. That's what settlements like Lakewood and Curious Joel are. These supposedly poor, living in $1 million Section 8 houses with 15 children while the father goes to yeshiva all day and the mother is nowhere to be seen. She's probably a little sore. Well, it's not from him, though. And, she's got to go to the mikvah every month to make sure her vagina's clean. Unfucking real. But that's what they do. They move into a neighborhood. They get one house. If they can get one house, that's all they need. Because according to their belief structure, a house can be a place of worship. So as soon as one of them has a house, or a group, an organization buys a house, maybe nobody even lives there, suddenly the neighborhood is full. Cars up and down the street, and penguins walking around, being mean, trampling on grass, not giving a fuck. Driving over shit, hitting cars with their cars, terrible drivers. And they make it so your once happy little neighborhood becomes this really awful place. So that when somebody comes up to your door and says, hey, your house is worth $150,000, we'll give you $400,000 to move out in a month, what are you going to do? You'd be a fucking fool not to take that shit. Because it's just going to get worse. And nobody's ever going to offer you 3, 4, 5 times the amount your house is worth. And that's what happens. People take that shit and they bail wisely. And as soon as they do, again, now it's another one in there, and it's another one in there, and they just take over the neighborhoods. And then by doing that, they take over the government of the neighborhood by, since when it comes down to voting, they're determined. They have all their people just voting in certain ways and voting them into positions. And eventually the city charters, the city committees are all them. And in Lakewood especially, they literally diverted funds away from public schools, meaning 2 public schools had to shut down so that they could use the public school bus system to bus their kids to the private yeshivas. And because the boys and the girls can't go on the same bus, each route needed 2 buses. The public school system was paying for their private school bus system and shutting down public schools to be able to pay for it. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a story of I guess a different Naomi Elkins, not the one that murdered her 2 daughters, that really needs to be focused on and is an example of not just the Semitism, but the bottom of darkness shit happening here. The ritual, the ritual SA happening here and going wrong. The children died from it. And, then there was the huge cover up. Like, it's crazy.
Let me stop you. You say SA, and it's obvious to a lot of us, but when I did my post, I had quite a few people message me privately and ask, what does SA mean?
Ritual sexual assault.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, I appreciate it. And like I've talked about it before, I'm gonna talk about it again. I'm gonna make a song about it. The Naomi Elkins thing needs to be investigated fully because it shows you, like, all the men that were there were a part of it. This was a soul correction ritual gone wrong, and it's just horrendous to think about it, right? But this other Naomi Elkins, apparently, so there was a neighborhood that had, at one point you had 4 streets that came together, and the 2 streets would come down, and then there'd be like a corner lot at each street where this weird intersection was. They were more like parallel streets that then came together, And so on each side of this huge intersection were these corner lots. And the corner lots had been zoned as open areas since 1925. They had been determined that they weren't big enough to support not just the house being there, but also the driveway being there, which would cause traffic jams and dangerous situations. And so for 100 years, nobody had an issue with it until Naomi Elkins and this other woman, which, again, weird. Why are these 2 women buying this property instead of a family or something? These 2 Jewish women bought the property and decided they wanted to build a house on it. When the neighborhood pushed back and was like, no, this has been zoned as an open area for 100 years. It's not big enough, blah, 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 blah. They immediately cried, anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism. And ended up sort of getting their way, I believe. Which is just, it's an example of Semitism. The policy and the predisposition being favorable to them. It's a fucking nightmare. It's all just one big fucking nightmare. So again, the Rothschild organization helped the Zionist movement by funding Zionists and purchasing large settlements and by creating new settlements. After the first wave in the early 1880s, there was another spike in 1890, right, when people were like, hey, the Rothschilds are funding this shit. Get over here. We all get fucking credit cards and we all get plots of land and shit. The Russian Empire officially approved the activity of the Hovivi Zion in 1890. The same year, the Odessa Committee began its operation in Jaffa. The purpose of this organization was to absorb immigrants into Ottoman Syria who came as a result of the activities of the Hovivi Zion in Russia. Also, Russian friary situation deteriorated as the authorities continued to push friars out of business and trade, and Moscow was almost entirely cleansed of its friars. What a beautiful thing, man. The Ottoman authorities recognized the friar immigration wave to the land as early as November of 1882. They recognized it as an invasion. They understood from the beginning of the 1880s that it was part of a larger friar national plan. See, they're saying it, but they're making it sound like it's not as bad. They recognized it as an invasion and as part of a larger plan to create the land of Israel, because the land of Israel did not exist. Consequently, see what I mean? They're not saying it like it was a good thing. They're saying it like it's a bad thing. They're just not actually saying it. They're saying they recognize the friar immigration wave, not the colonization wave. They understood it was part of a bigger plan. They understood that it was, a much bigger colonization plan. So consequently, they took steps to limit the entry option for friars into the country. Restrictions were imposed despite the Sultan's permission for friar settlement given during a meeting with two friar representatives from Romania in May of 1882. So two random friar representatives just demand a meeting with the Sultan, and he's like, oh yeah, you can do what you want. Really? Does anybody actually believe that? I guarantee the Sultan's people don't agree with that. That's just, no, I swear, we had a meeting with him, and he said we could do it.
But this is my parting gift. Now I know I should be better, but just like Betty Botter, I'm
The scope of the immigration diminished due to these restrictions and the difficulties faced by the immigrants in May of 1882, right? And it's not because it's the difficulties, it's because people were like, hey, wait, I thought we were supposed to have all this Semitism here. And they were failing. They were diseased and hungry. This is just before Rothschild steps in. So people were like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this. This isn't working out. In America, the streets are paved with gold, but there are no cats in America. Talk about being fed your fucking propaganda Hasbara bullshit as a child. Fievel. Young Fievel. I remember being a kid and crying when Fievel and his dad finally ran together and they were hugging and, oh, Fievel, my little Fievel. I remember being a kid and just so emotionally and not understanding and, you know. But it's just a euphemism. And the streets are paved with cheese. There are no cats in America. Come on, man. Friar immigration to Ottoman Palestine from Eastern Europe occurred as part of a mass immigration of approximately 2.5 million people. Now it's just 2.5? I thought it was 4.5. That took place towards the end of the 19th and beginning of 20th century. A rapid increase in population had created economic problems that affected friar societies in the Pale of Settlement, Russia, and Gallica, and Romania. So what they do is they create economic turmoil where they are, and those people get mad and kick them out. And the people that are in the places they're going to create economic turmoil so that the prices all drop and they can all move their people in. And then suddenly the economy picks back up and now everything's good. And whenever they want to bring in a wave, they tank the economy in that area, making all the prices super cheap, making the people leave, and then they come in. You see it over and over again. Persecution of friars in Russia was also a factor. In 1881, we're still talking about a 2-year period, 1881 to 1883. Tsar Alexander of Russia was assassinated, and the authorities blamed the friars for the assassination for no reason. They just did it because they didn't like the Jesus, and there was no reason to blame us, but they did for some strange reason. Created a whole bunch of evidence and, fabricated all of it. Consequently, in addition to the May laws, major anti-friar pogroms swept through the Pale of Settlement. Right, they got rid of these horrible people for what they were doing. It wasn't for nothing. A movement called Habit Zion, we already know about that, Lovers of Zion, spread across the Pale, helped by Leon Pinsker's pamphlet, Auto Emancipation. Here it all comes back together, you guys. As did the similar Bilu movement. Both movements encouraged friars to immigrate to Ottoman Palestine. Why? Why, if they were suffering such hardships and pogroms, why would they move to a place where they weren't wanted? It just doesn't make any sense. It's just them trying to make the story sound fively, sound sad. In 1882, many friars who were preparing to immigrate and several organizations that were on the verge of finalizing land purchases for establishing settlements were thrown into disarray and decided not to immigrant because of the Ottomans' restriction. Yeah, that's what it was. It was the restrictions. It wasn't the lack of success. It wasn't the fact that it didn't turn out to be the utopia until after Rothschild stepped in. Because after Rothschild stepped in, suddenly all those restrictions were gone, and they were like, hey, we don't have to work, we own shit, we're the bosses, we control things, we have slaves. I'll take it. The immigration renewed in 1890 for several reasons. The prominent among them were, number one, the Russian government granted official approval for the activities of the Habit Zion, Lovers of Zion movement in 1890. Starting from this year, the Odessa Committee began operating in the land, aiming to give home to immigrants who arrived in the country legally due to the Zionist activity in Russia. The friars arrived to the land as Russian citizens. So, they were given homes. Number two, the economic situation of Russia, Russian friars worsened as the authorities continued to push friars out of the trade and industry. In 1891, friars were expelled from Moscow. This difficult situation increased immigration from Russia. If they're so persecuted and expelled, who paid for that trip? Russia to Palestine is a long fucking way, man. How did they? This is 1881. What were the methods? How did they do this? Number three, the economic condition of the settlements from the first wave of immigration improved during the period of the first Aliyah, thanks to the assistance from Baron Rothschild through planting orchards, establishing vineyards, etc. This phenomenon attracted the second wave of the first Aliyah to the land of Israel. It's the second wave of the first one. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. Because again, Rothschild steps in and everything is going to be paid for. They are no longer going to have to work, and it's going to be the utopia they were promised. Notice how the why Rothschild stepped in just doesn't seem to matter. The first Aliyah laid the cornerstone for friar settlement in Israel and created several settlements Blah, 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 blah. Who gives it? Immigrants from the first Aliyah also contributed to the existing friar towns and settlements. Notably, who gives a fuck? The first neighborhoods of Tel Aviv. Gee, I wonder who edited this. Neighbourhoods. That's not how Americans spell neighborhoods. The first neighborhoods of Tel Aviv, Nevi in 1887, and Shalom, Nevi Shalom in 1890 were also built by members of the Aliyah, although it was not until the second Aliyah that Tel Aviv was officially founded. I love how they make it sound like they built these things, and then they're like, it was founded. It was founded. It was found. They're not black people. I did that thing. I founded that thing. The settlements established by the first Aliyah, listen to this. The settlements established by the first Aliyah are from, I'm not going to read the names, but 1882, taking over and renaming the colony of Jina, established in 1878, and down to 3 families by 1882. Rishon LeZion, 1882. Rosh Pina, 1882. Zikron Yaakov, 1882. Petah Zikdeh, 1882, renamed after the first attempt in 1878. Wait, 1878? I thought the first Aliyah was in 1881. Do you see how none of it makes sense? Look, somebody pretending to be the pedophile of the USA is here, pretending to be... Why would you want to pretend to be an orange troll, Zionist, Israeli fucking slave, Bibi dick-sucking fucking pedophile? Why would you... Do you guys... How come nobody talks about the fact Trump is clearly gay? Like, no, he's not. Look, he has a young, hot wife that has nothing to do with him ever. He likes little girls, you know, that don't have big fucking great bodies. They're little girls. They have little boy bodies. Right? You ever notice when Trump really gets going? Not when he's concentrating and keeping his profile like what it's supposed to be. But when he starts going off the cuff and his hands start swaying and he does that all the time. He's like clearly an old gay man. It explains why he's so homophobic. Margit Betza, 1883, established as Ekron. Nes Zayana, 1883. Yehuda Yamlebe, 1883. Gerdina, 1884. Bat Shlomo, 1889. Mir Shafia, 1889. Rehovet, 1890. Mishmar Hayardin, 1890. Hadara, 1891. In Zitim, 1892. Motza, 1894. Hartuvu, 1895. Metula, 1896. Be'er Tuvia, 1896. Reestablished and renamed by Hovivi Zion, first settled in 1887 under Castina. B'nai Yehuda, 1898, not identical with the B'nai Yehuda Golan Heights. Mahareim, 1898 through 1912. Must have taken a lot of killing to do that one. Sijira, 1899. Masha, 1801. Renamed Kafar Tavor in 1903. Yavneh, 1901. Maneh, 1901. Biet Ganan, 1903. Next to Yelene. A Tilt, 1903. Give Ada, 1903. Kafar Saba, 1904. Sounds like an invasion to me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. 28 of these towns was established were established from 1918. Well, again, it said 1878. It's supposed to be from 1881 to 1903. So more than one per year is established. That's an invasion. It's just fucking crazy. Anyway, you guys have yourself a great day. Go check out, go get your free download, www.the-bilderberg, BILDERBERG-group.com. It's free to download, free to listen to. Just when I ask you how much you want to pay, click 0, and it'll be free after you click download. The first link, that's the first link. Second link is the link to Hollywoodism, most important film ever created. Explains why you think the way you do. Take it easy, Matt. Why you believe in dumb shit like George Washington and first Aliyahs and all this other shit. Hall of hoaxes and whatnot. It's all because of them. It's all because of Hollywoodism and them manufacturing the world that they wanted to live in through the manipulation. The third link will be Israel Hayom, Bottom of Darkness article, which is very difficult to read both in scope and physically because the website will keep kicking you off and you have to keep going back. It's fucked up. Like, it's the opposite of what you would do. You wouldn't make something difficult. That would make people not want to read it. But it lays it all out for you why they are the way they are. Why they can say, you know, yeah, your house was bombed, but were you raped from 3 to 12 and then once you turn 13, you know, forced to rape a child for your own redemption, blah, 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 you know, 14, 15, 16, whatever, forced to rape a child and complete the cycle. Were you forced into all that shit? Ritual bullshit? No? Okay, go buy a new fucking house. Yeah, we deserve $3.8 billion a year. It's not free. No, we paid for that. We paid for that in ways you can't even imagine. From 3 to 12, ritualist every 2 weeks. Soul correction happens every 2 weeks. To this day, it's still happening every 2 weeks in Israel. Big circle of adults, all naked. Psalms and mutterings and prayers and all that shit. With a circle of kids in the middle, all naked. After a Torah lesson, they do this, and then they rape the children. What fucking document? It's what's right there. You can. Israel Hayom, Bottom of Darkness, will tell you all about it. And Israel Hayom is their paper. Number one paper in Israel is Israel Hayom. There's a list of receipts. Act.il, Team Jorge, Auto Emancipation, Havara Agreement. There's a link to the most important 30-second clip on YouTube, which is Naftali Bennett telling you. Sorry, hang on.
Shiny, shiny, shiny boots of leather. Whiplash, girl, child, in the dark. Severing your servant comes in bells. Please don't forsake him.
Sorry. Was feeling lightheaded, so it didn't type much. Good, man. Sometimes it's good to just listen. I mean, I'm sorry you feel lightheaded. I'm just saying, you know. Anyway, all the receipts are there. Then there's the link to a bunch of different song videos on YouTube. On Facebook. Go like, share, and sub those. Like the Facebook page, share the Facebook page, sub to the Facebook page. If I'm not live here, I'm live there. Interesting how we got all the way up to like 60 something today, but now we're back down to 12, as always. 28 likes, 12 viewers. Totally makes sense. Anyway, have yourself a great day, and most importantly, you pedophile piece of shit pedophiles, kill yourself. Wait for it.